Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2, our second podcast on our Real Housewives Roundup, where we are talking this week again about the lovely ladies of New York and Beverly Hills. I am joined by my co-host, Leandro. Leandro, how you doing this afternoon?
I am doing well today. I'm not going to say having me again because I'm as part of this as you are, but I'm just excited. There's a lot to unfold, and yeah, I'm here.
And we have someone auditioning for your role today, Leandro, so maybe we are just having you. I'm kidding. You know so much more about this stuff than I do. If anything, Katie, you're coming in for my spot. But we have our first guest of the season. Katie, welcome to the show. Tell us, first of all, how you're doing on this lovely Saturday afternoon. And second, your Real Housewives fandom, experience, whatever it may be. Give us your background on this.
Sure. Well, hi. I will say thank you for having me. So thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. The Housewives are maybe my number 1 or 2 favorite topic to talk about at all times. So I'm really, really excited to talk about this with you guys. And what can I say about my fandom? I don't know. These women just take up way too much space in my brain is all I can really say. I think about them all the time. I want to relate everything in my life to like a reference about them. So it's it's just a problem that I have, and I'm glad that I share it with other people.
I agree. Like, just having gotten into this, it's like I find myself thinking about it too often. So
All the time.
Yeah, I understand entirely. So this week we were just talking like right before the podcast started of how we didn't have the lightest of episodes for us to talk about. So some forewarning is that we will be talking about some racial issues in terms of like language and equality and inequality and perception. So if that's your jam, then stick around, and if it's not, we'll catch you next week when Ramona probably does something stupid for us to talk about. So all right, let's just jump right into this because both of these kind of just have some heavy hitting topics. I feel like we should start with New York only because we started with New York last week and I have them first in my notes. Anyone oppose?
Not at all.
No,
Perfect.
fine.
So we get back to this breakfast at Tiffany's dinner, and they're still all dressed as Aubrey Hepburn. I wasn't ready for it. I like, even though I left the episode with them dressed as Aubrey Hepburn, I was not. I don't know why, but it still took me by surprise.
Same.
So we get them, or the women, still talking about sex when we come back, and Ramona leaves again because she doesn't want to talk about sex. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hypocritical is this?
100.
I have an unpopular opinion about it.
Ooh, tell us.
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
disagree with Ramona. I do think she's hypocritical, and obviously she's getting, and excuse my language, but she's getting dick down like all the time. We know it. But my theory is that she doesn't want to talk about it on camera, and that's why I feel like Leah is just like poking at her, knowing that's why she doesn't want to talk about it. And I just don't disagree with her. If she wants to like get it in whenever, do that. But if she also wants to keep it private, I don't think that makes her not sex positive. Personally.
Do you think if Ramona just straight up said on camera one time, like, okay, I get it, but it's on camera that I don't want to talk about this off camera, I'll say those words too. Do you think that that's kind of like what Leah's waiting for to hear?
I think that is, and I feel like that's why Leah is like, she's being hypocritical because she's running around in a thong or whatever, but I feel like she knows the camera is not rolling, and that's why she's doing that.
I mean, we saw camera footage of it.
Well,
I
we
had to
did, that's
see
true.
Ramona flashing those titties, shaking around. So
And nobody needed that. None of us needed that.
The thing with Ramona, and it's just like she has this idea of what kind of person she is that is not exactly the truth of what we see. And there's nothing wrong with what she does, like all the drinking, the cursing, the sex talk. And I feel like she thinks you're gonna be judged for that because her social group of friends, they're all like socialite from New York. So I feel like she wants to be looked at the polite, no-sex talk one, the prude one, which that doesn't make sense. But I'll agree with Katie on this one. Like, it's her right to not want to talk about those things on camera, to create this character. So Leah is poking the bear for sure.
Yeah, I could see why. I also just feel like all those women that she hangs out with not on the show are just the same way though, in terms of like the sex, the drinking, the Adderall, the whatever.
Oh,
You know what
yeah.
I mean? That like
Yeah.
so like putting on this holier than thou performance. I think that I will call Ramona hypocritical until she says like on camera, I'm not for this. Like the only time we saw her get close to it was in the birthday party when Leah was like grinding on whoever she could find. Yeah. But to be fair, like Leah was wearing a bodysuit underneath. So, but again, like Ramona and bodysuits is probably a whole thing in itself that like we got close when she was like, no, stop it, blah, blah. But if Ramona gets to the point where she says straight up to Leah on camera, I'm not about this shit, I can understand Leah poking the bear because it's also going to make good TV in some occasions.
That's the thing about Leah, and I think I talked about that last week. I feel like Leah is feeling the pressure of her second season because she was so popular on her first season, and she's really trying to come with these storylines that nobody asked her for. You know, like the sexting, and then like all the entire thing about Leah just like poking Heather with like, like you were talking this, I feel like she is kind of feeling like in the producer seat a little bit.
Yes.
And it's showing. And maybe the sex positive thing is just trying to like get a new storyline down and also like making sure that her character is the one that everybody saw. Like she elevated the shit according to her. She's bringing the youth to Roni. So I do feel like she's trying to create storylines that I don't think is necessarily like organic, it's very fabricated. Yeah.
I totally agree. And I agree with you about saying that she feels like she's bringing the youth to Roni, but we don't need it. Like these women have been carrying, they're older women. They're in their late 40s, early 50s, Ramona's 60, whatever. We don't need, I mean, do we need like a younger woman to come shake up these older ladies who've been carrying the show on their backs and giving us this entertainment for a decade plus? No, we don't. I mean, they've been doing it and they will continue doing it. And Leah's not the one that I'm tuning in for personally.
That's a very good point, Katie. Like a lot of people talk about the housewives and why like they're so like appealing to the audience, and I feel like that's the major character. Like nobody, I saw, I think was Andy Cohen's special like about reality TV, and there's an episode about the Real Housewives, and that's he talks about that. Like nobody was given like like women of a certain age, especially like in Hollywood and television, they're done. They're like they got 40. There's no roles for you. There's nothing, and it gives a space for them to just be themselves. And obviously, it's a very specific group of older women that have lots of money and stuff. But it's just to show that the life of a woman does not end after she's 40. So that's a very good point, Katie, because like Leah is fun, like her first season was very good, but we don't necessarily need the show to be young all the time. So love that.
There's also probably a pressure because I don't know if either of you have looked at her clothing line, but I did pull up her website and everything on there is just like based off of phrases she said in the first season. And so like it's not just to like be young and carry things here and for like the young crowd of the New York Housewives, but also like her brand and her life, like that's her money right there, is like what's the next thing she can do or say that can be like trademark for her t-shirts. So I think that can also tie into it. There's probably that added pressure of like the clothes she's selling are to Real Housewives fans who think she's funny, and like the shirts that say like I elevate this shit bitch type of thing. So well, here's like this next part was classic Ramona to me, where she's like, the best way to deal with Leah is to change the subject. So then she's like, Leah's grandma's dying and we had a fight. Like, way to change it to the happiest thing.
Read the room, Ramona. Read the room.
Right.
Like, instead of having her be angry, let's just make her sad.
Yeah. Why not?
And I thought it was funny when something came up where it's like, oh, Leah's grandma's dying, and then we had a fight last night. And Heather's like, ooh, it sounds juicy. Tell me more. And Sonia goes, no, it'll be on your next podcast.
We'll hear it in your next podcast. When Sonia is not off her ass drunk, she is truly hilarious. I mean, she's hilarious when she's off her ass drunk too, but she is just so quick-witted. She's just hilarious to me. I really noticed it in this episode.
I feel like Sonia is the spirit of Roni. Like a lot of other franchises, like they have so many girls that don't want to share everything. They're so worried about their outside image. And Sonia is just Sonia. She's just does whatever she feels like she's doing. You know, she's there for a good time. She's getting her paycheck at the end of the day. Either she's making a fool of herself or, you know, making a fool of herself. But that's Sonia. I love her for that.
Same.
So after this, Leah and Ramona go at it a little bit more. Nothing really comes of it until Ebony was kind of listening. And Ebony goes, did you just say you can take a big dick?
That was truly, well, I wrote down the quote of the back and forth between Ramona and Leah talking about this, like to the side, because what Ramona said is that she never was taught to talk about sex, and she gave an example, and her example was, this dick is big, this dick is small, I like dick, I like to bleep his big bleep, she has a WP, let's do a WAP, or whatever it's called. And I just was like, I had to rewind that like 3 times. I was like, what the fuck is this lady even saying right now? What is she even saying? The WP. She has a WP. She doesn't know what WAP is, so she says WP. It just really, it took me out.
Was WAP out at that time? It must have been.
I think so. If he was filmed in like maybe October-ish.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't even remember when it came out. Like, all of quarantine is a blur. So,
sorry for all the Cardi B fans that are listening to us. We don't know when WAP was released.
I don't know the release date by heart. I'm sorry.
It's not Cardi B that that's causing me to not remember. It's the fact that we've lived the same day for like a year and a half in a row. Yeah. It's not her, it's me. So yes, though I had the closed captioning on, so reading that as it was happening, I'm just like, what is she saying right now? But it led to Ebony asking her did she say that she can take a big dick? And I mean, everyone kind of agreed that she probably can, but that wasn't the point of this. Ramona is again upset that they're talking about this. I'm upset and pissed off, and Ebony was like, I thought she said she could take a big dick, and Leah said, yeah, she probably can, and Ramona's like, what happened to elegance in class? Do we think being able to take a big dick is related to elegance in class? Your thoughts and opinions right now.
Not at all.
I don't see why not.
Yeah. I don't think that those Venn diagrams should overlap.
Yeah,
I think they're
no.
separate circles.
Yeah.
And it goes with the same thing, like they were talking about, like being, she's a good mom, like was talked about in the previous episode.
Right.
Like she can be a good mom, but she can also be, like a bad person in other aspects of their life. So they're just trying to justify some things with other things that doesn't make sense at all.
Yep.
Do we think Ebony was trying to instigate it all with this?
I truly don't think so. I think she was trying to like make it lighter and funny and just like, I thought I heard you say that, and then Ramona just flew off the handle.
Yeah, I think it was just like a way to, like getting herself into the conversation, and no, I don't think it was malicious at all.
I didn't either, but I figured I'd open up the opportunity for someone to bite and say yes. So,
did you guys notice that Ebony said that it's very big in POC between, I think she was talking about Ramona and Leah, and Sonia just had no clue what the reference was. And she was just like, we can pop off? And that just made me laugh. Sonia makes me laugh.
Sonia's the best.
Who is Biggie and who is Tupac in that?
Oh, that's a good question.
Thank you. That's why I'm here.
I don't think I can answer that. To be honest, like I didn't listen to Biggie and to Tupac. I didn't follow that time of the, so I prefer not to comment on this one.
I think Leah is more Biggie. And because she said it was Leah and Ramona, correct? Are Biggie and Tupac?
I think that's what she was referring to.
Okay, then I would say that Leah is more Biggie and Ramona is more Tupac. But I don't say that with confidence.
I don't know. I'm really thinking about it, and I'm, an East Coaster. Not to restart this East Coast West Coast, but I do listen to Biggie. I never really listen to Pac, and I don't know. I don't like Leah. That's why I don't want to compare her.
So I like Leah more than Ramona,
The memory
which is probably why I'm assigning her to Biggie. Because I like Biggie more than I like Tupac, also an East Coaster. So
I don't dislike Leah, but I definitely am not digging Leah this season as much as I dig on the first season. Like, it's pretty obvious that she's going through stuff, but like I think I talked to Katie on like private before. Like, she put herself in a role that nobody gave it to her. Like, don't try to be the narrator, the instigator, the producer. Like, just chill. Things will come naturally.
Yeah, she's trying to fill Bethany's very big shoes.
Yeah.
I am not a Bethany fan. Leo knows this. I don't love Bethany. She drives me up a fucking wall. But she was natural at it.
Yeah.
Leah is trying. She's just trying way too hard.
Yeah. And I didn't feel like that on first season of Leah.
Right.
But I'm feeling a little bit of that.
It's getting to her.
On season 2 for sure.
Katie, our Housewives interests are exact opposite. Like, the reason I watched New York after I finished Beverly Hills was because of Bethany Frankel. So, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to talk about Beverly Hills with you because I have opinions, and I wonder if they'll be the same.
Stay tuned.
Because I know both of you, I don't think it will be, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Okay. Like, listen, I don't like any of these people enough to like stand my ground as harshly as I would if you were to like insult my dog or the Boston Red Sox, but I do like some of them more than others, and I tend to be drawn to the people that I think are most like me. So that probably doesn't say much about my character. Anyway, so the next morning we've got Ramona and we've got Sonia talking, and Ramona's like, "Why does everyone have to talk about penises?" They cut to Ebony saying, like, I have to apologize. I thought she said it. I meant it as a compliment, which, like, sure, everybody wants to be told that. Thank you for complimenting the depth of my vagina. So,
insults.
No. There's so many worse things that could be said about you. Like, it's definitely in the top half of things that could be said about you versus the bottom half for sure. So Ebony also brings up, like, it comes down to politics that women are allowed to talk about these things. And I love that Ebony keeps bringing things back to, I think, like, especially more our generation, more so than, like, the older Housewives generation of, like, there's certain things we don't talk about because we're not supposed to, where I think our generation is a little bit more like, yes, I get my period. Yes, I have boobs. Yes, I have sex. Like, these are things that, like, the sky is blue, the grass is green. So I like that Ebony, like, brings these things up and points out the inequities between certain double standards. And Leah also agrees that she's sick of the hypocrisy. So Ramona also says to Sonia that she can't believe that Leah started all this trouble with Heather about the podcast, but if Heather wants to keep hanging out with them, that Heather can't be, like, taking what's said in these places and brought on her podcast. What do you guys think of that part, especially? Because I think, like, we've more or less talked about the
penises.
Yeah.
Like, to be honest, like I said last week, they all talk shit about each other. Everything gets leaked in the press. Everybody's doing in their own unique way, So Heather has a podcast. Is she telling lies? Is she telling truth? We don't know. The people who were there, I don't think Heather would be creating stories, But, like, it's very hard to, like, acknowledge, like, whatever Lou did and everything. But we know that she had a troubled past, right? So it's a lot of, like, what contest things were said, right? I don't listen to her podcast, so I don't know. But you can't, like, tell people that they're not allowed to talk about stuff. Like, people in real life, they do that, Like, I'm here with you guys in a podcast, and maybe my partner later will ask, how was your podcast? And I will talk about you guys, and this with every group of friends. So you cannot have control about that. So what is she trying to do? Like, she's really trying to control the narrative of all the conversation when everybody has different views of the same event. That's, like, logical. So I don't know. Like I don't agree with that. I don't.
I don't agree with it either. And I mean, I think Leah has said multiple times, I've only met Heather for 5 minutes, but she's going so far out of her way to make this narrative about Heather, talking about the women on the podcast. But then it comes out that she was talking about when she was on the show with someone else that was on the show, Carol, and that's well within her right. I mean, if you don't want her to talk about it and you're doing things that you don't want to be spoken about, don't do it. Like that's kind of how I feel about it. And she was talking about, and she says this, I think, a little bit later on, is that she was talking about her own experiences and her own experience on the trip. She wasn't trying to disparage. And again, I didn't listen, so I don't know what she said. But coming from what it sounded like, she was just talking about how things were for her on the trip to wherever they went. I forget where they went. When Lou was with the pirate.
St. Bart's, I think.
Yeah.
St. Bart's, right.
Yeah.
So like, big deal. And it also didn't seem like the women actually cared until Leah kept stirring and kept Googling what she was saying. And it's like, okay, let's move along. This is a non-issue. Let's keep it moving. And I was really excited to see Heather back, actually. I feel like she grounds this group. There's no like anchor of a sensible person anymore with these women. And I think we were missing that last season. We're very clearly missing it this season. And I feel like Heather brings that, and it's just disappointing that everybody's against her.
Yeah, I wonder what's gonna happen soon, because like Heather was like invited to be on this season. Like I don't think she was going to be a full-time cast member, but she was going to be a friend of. And it's very well known that she stopped filming halfway through the season. And I wonder, because like from what like it was not that just happened, because they seem cool now on these episodes, but something is about to happen that will make Heather say, I won't film with these girls anymore. So I'm very curious about that.
The one thing that I like, I'm not trying to play devil's advocate, because I agree with you guys. First of all, you're an adult and you are in some sort of public eye, that you might not be like an A-list celebrity, but there's still people who will go out of their way to read what you're doing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, that if you don't want it coming out, then don't do it. You are smart enough, old enough, like, to know better than that. I guess like the one thing that I think if it was framed this way, I would understand it more is like, all right, Luann's already battling out, like being sober, alcoholism, if she did consider herself an alcoholic or not. I'm not trying to place labels, but to then also like beat her while she's down type of thing. Like, do we have to go after the cast member who's trying to build their life back up to be in a better place while she's in this process? Is this what she really needs? Like, especially when you're going to be seeing her again. You're going to have to see her face to face. I just don't know if, like, does Heather have to do that? Are more people going to listen because she did this? Maybe, but, like, is that worth the interpersonal relationships that, like, he's going to damage? Apparently, like, it didn't really matter to her,
but the thing is, Carrie, I'm sorry to cut you here. It's just like Heather, like we don't know exactly what happened on the podcast, and it seems to me that Heather just mentioned like what happened on the trip. I don't think she was saying that was either good behavior or bad behavior. I think she was like, it was not from like a judgmental place. I think she was just saying like, oh, this situation happened where probably Luann was doing hard drugs or something like that. You know? Like, and I feel like the problem is like, is way more on like Leah bringing that up and forcing Luann to have an opinion about that. I think that's way more aggressive than Heather talking the podcast itself, because now Luann not only has to defend her character, but she has to do that in front of the cameras on the Roni thing. So I think it, maybe Leah came from a good intention place that she wanted to, spill the beans, but I don't think it helped at all. I think it made it worse. It's like put fire on gasoline, right? So
I agree. And it's like, how many people are listening to Heather's podcast versus watching Roni?
Right.
So to bring it forward, and I do think these women in the past seasons, Dorinda has done it, Tinsley has done it, Bethany did it a lot with Luann. No one has ever hesitated to say anything negative about Luann on camera. And people have said so much worse, especially Bethany, about her behavior. I don't think what Heather may or may not, again, didn't listen, so I don't know. But it doesn't seem like as egregious as some of the things that other people have said.
I just don't think it's a secret that Luann had a trouble past. Everybody knew what went down. She went arrested.
Yeah.
We all knew what happened with Luann, in the past. So if Heather's talking about it, it's in the past. It's not what Luann is now. But bringing that up again, it makes Luann in a position that she has to, confront that, because that would be she saying, "I'm not that anymore." How dare you to say things about that? So it's a little.
Yeah, I hear you guys. I didn't listen, and quite frankly, believe that Luann did it. So
we should do like an extra version of like a sideshow. Like we're all gonna listen to Heather podcast and we're gonna talk about it.
That should have been our homework assignment.
Yes. They'll bring in like the 7th, 8th, and 9th views of it. But anyway, so we get a little snippet of Leah being like, my grandmother isn't communicating. She's slipping away. Realizing I'm never going to have another conversation with my grandmother, and she like closes the door on the camera. So I think they put that in there just to kind of set the scene of like, she's definitely not in a good place right now for things coming forward.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Why can't Leah just leave and go see her grandmother? Is it like a COVID thing? Is it a filming thing? Like, if she's
my guess is it's COVID.
Okay.
As someone who, like, my grandfather passed away during the pandemic, like, we weren't able, like, they had to have very strict regulations of who could and couldn't go in, and like, especially like basically we got a phone call within 24 hours of like, he's got 24 hours, so they had to like put him in a certain place within the thing so that like my parents could go visit, my brother could go visit. So my guess would be that it's COVID stuff based off of that, especially like with who she's around, and like, you know what I mean? It's not like she's
Ramona.
been quarantined. Right. She hasn't been quarantining for 2 weeks, and it puts a whole actually my grandfather got COVID from being in a nursing facility.
Oh, no.
But he didn't die from COVID. Just he died from being old. He was 90. So like I don't want to connect those two, but I do know that like he got it from being in a nursing home, that like it spread very easily there. And then in addition with that, I do have that insight of like they were very particular about certain things of like my mom. So like my brother had to wait. He couldn't go in with my parents. So like my brother had to go in on his own because they could only have like 2 people in there at a time or whatever. So they definitely at least had some strict.
Yeah.
And that was like only 2 months after, I guess, this was being filmed, because this was December and you said October. So that would be my guess, if like the COVID stuff probably. So we get Ramona and Heather talking. Ramona was like, how was last night? Heather said it was good besides being attacked. I just felt like I was telling my truth, which you mentioned. And Ramona says, like, I don't think you should talk about it. And Heather says, it's my business who I talk about. And Ramona said, can you promise that you just won't talk about me, good or bad? And Heather said, yeah, sure, I'm just here for fun. Should Heather have agreed to that?
I think Heather's going to do whatever she wants. I think she was just like, I'm tired of this conversation.
But Heather knows Ramona. She knows that if she says, sure, Ramona will shut up. And that's why with Ramona, you just tell what she wants to hear. So I think that's what Heather did at that moment.
Yeah. Agreed.
So afterwards, we cut to Luann, and they're talking about what can we do that's different. And so her daughter has set up a nude art exhibit, painting, drawing, whatever like way you want to do it. So maybe not exhibit, but like a wine and paint night, except it's a nude model. Maybe, I don't know. Definitely something different.
You guys haven't done that with your mom?
I have.
We do it every weekend.
Please show us some of your artwork. And so are you doing it tonight after this podcast, or is it tomorrow? Is it your Sunday or Saturday ritual?
Usually we do it on Sunday, our day of rest, but
it's the Lord's Day.
On the Lord's Day, yes.
Just appreciating the male body.
2 things about this situation with Luann's daughter, like the setup. Victoria is gorgeous.
Yes,
Like every
she's
time that
gorgeous.
she shows up, I'm just like, she's so beautiful.
Yes.
Like, and like we saw, like she growing up, like she was, I think we even got to see her Sweet 16 party or something at the early seasons. And now she's just like this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful woman. I'm obsessed with Victoria. I want to be friends with her because I feel like she's a cool kid. And second, I need to know like the male model like ads. I can't find him. I want to see how he looks like, if you know what I mean.
I wonder if they tagged him on Instagram or anything.
They did it because I looked for it. I was like, I want to know, how he looks like, because it was so much like, like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I want to know what that is about.
We'll find him. His name was Kurt. All I know is his name was Kurt, but we'll find him. We just have to look at who Victoria is following. I'm sure she's following him. We'll track him down.
I cannot wait for this detective work. This will be great. I mean, if you become friends with Victoria, Leandro, then you don't really need to do all this detective work. So if you make part 1 of what you just said happen, you don't need to do a lot of work to make part 2 happen.
Yeah, that's true.
So decide where you're going to put your energy. Hopefully
work smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
My partner's right there. He's just listening to me talking.
It's all platonic, we swear. It's for art. It's art. It's art.
I'm sure he wants to see that too.
It's an art exhibit.
Yeah. We go back to Ramona's house, and Ramona goes downstairs, and she's like, why do you need hair and makeup done to go to lunch to Ebony and Leah? Leah said, like, I don't feel good about myself. This was in her confessional. She's like, I'm not feeling great about myself, but at least like looking nice can help me feel nice. Ebony was saying, like, no, it's not rude. As a Black woman, my hair is different than yours. I have to wash it and then get the texture correct. That takes longer. And Ramona was just like, you should have started earlier. I'm hangry and I want to go eat. Ebony is like, you can go. You're not going to tell me what to do with my time. I'm a free woman. Like, I'll do what I want. And Ramona literally screams, not just like a figurative scream. I am telling you, literally, she screamed and said, we're leaving without you.
Yes, she just let out a random scream.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't scream words, just screamed.
Yeah. It was just the sound. It was like when they were doing releasing the energy at Burning Man night 1 in the Hamptons.
Yes.
What did you guys take away from this part? Because I feel like there's a few things that we can definitely talk about, but you tell me how you want this conversation to go.
First of all, there's no news. Like season 13, Ramona is a control freak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That I was like, okay, that seems like Ramona, but good for Ebony for not bowing down to the queen. You know what I'm saying? Just like, okay, go ahead. Like, it's literally like a lunch at a friend's house. Like people always showed up like in different times. It's not like this super like scheduled event. Like, so calm down and let people do whatever they want to do. Like, what the fuck, Ramona? But it's for sure entertaining to watch. I laughed a lot on that scene. Like, I could never leave with someone like that, and I feel like that's the magic behind Housewives, because you just see it and you just can't believe that someone like that actually exists. I was shocked. But good for Ebony for not bound down to Ramona, and like when Leah said that she's elevated this shit, I feel like Ebony is elevating the shit, because Ebony is bringing like subjects that it was not talked before on the show, but it looks like it was not part of like those women's life. Maybe Leah is aware of that because she's young and she hang out, but like it is true, it's her story. Ebony has like a different like relationship with her hair than the white women does. So she work hard, she can afford glam, and she is gonna take use of that. Why do you care? So I am loving Ebony so much.
Ebony is amazing. I'm so happy that she's with us on the show. And Leo, I think you're right. Like, she's making these women, I don't want to say uncomfortable because it shouldn't be uncomfortable, but they are uncomfortable because they don't know how to react to a woman of color who is just putting them in their places. Like, she'll just snap her fingers and they're just like, oh, because they don't know what they're saying, but everything they're saying is just so ignorant that they just don't know how to react to it. And I think it's time, and we needed it. And the fact that we went 13 seasons in New York City without a woman of color on the show, a Black woman on the show, I think it's just it's pretty sad from Bravo's perspective, from Bravo's point. But I think in this scene specifically, what stood out to me the most is that these glam artists are in full hazmat suits, which is wild to me. Like, they're in full like gowns and hazmat suits. That's just the only thing. That was like the main. I'm like, what is happening with these glam people that they're in hazmat suits?
They go from making the crystal meth, like in Breaking Bad, then straight to their secondary job of the makeup. I think that's it. Right?
I just don't understand. Like, a mask is not sufficient. Like a full gown. That's what took me by. But yes, I mean, Ramona is a mess. She's a control freak. The Leah of it all, I don't know. I think I'm just being hard on Leah, and she did annoy me a little bit. Ebony, I completely whatever. Ebony affords the glam. She's doing it. She's just meet her there. No one actually was mad except for Ramona. It's not a big deal. The Leah of it all, I feel like she does it just to poke Ramona. That's what I feel like. She exists to poke these women.
I agree, 100%. And just to touch on like Ebony's like presence on the show, there's two things. Like Ebony, she took off of social media for a little bit because she said that the next episodes are gonna be a little hard, and she's not ready for the audience response of that. But Ebony made so many headlines this week because of this episode. She like morning shows were talking about Ebony, like blogs of all kinds, like even like international blogs and stuff like that. So that's very good. Like New York is a very multicultural city. I think one of these articles that I read say that it's 25% is Black, is African American. There's 25% there's like Latin, and we don't see that in Roni specifically. So Ebony not only be on the show, but she's saying like, I'm here, and like it sucks because like every like minority when they go to these kind of shows, they have this like like they didn't ask for this whole role of like represent a bunch of people, but I feel like Ebony is very aware of that, and she is just like being herself, but in a way that she's not gonna like compromise what she represents to mold to this white rich ladies group. So I really like when she talked about her hair, because it is different, like, and it's not Ramona Singer that's going to say that it's not.
Right.
So that was very good, in my opinion. There was a moment that I was like, yes, call them out on that.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like it's sad, and I think we're seeing it in every city that's adding I don't want to say that they're even becoming more diverse. They're adding a sliver of diversity into each city. We had Tiffany Moon in Dallas, who is born in China. We have Crystal in Beverly Hills. We have Garcelle in Beverly Hills. And each one of them has, I want to say, inadvertently been tasked to teach these women about other cultures outside of their very white bubble. That's unfortunate to me that they can't just come onto the show and show us their lives without having to be the bearer of their cultures for the entire world that's watching them. That I think sucks. And I'm sad that it has to be that way. And I feel like that's the problem of only bringing one Black woman onto the show. She has no one to relate to. She's with these old ass Upper East Side ladies that don't know anything, who are racist, who vote for Trump. I mean, it's like, I think that's a problem to put Ebony into that situation. I think she knows what a lot of the people on social media are going to come for her and say, which is unfortunate. And all of those people are wrong to do that to her. And I guess she saw, what's happening in all these other cities. And Kenya Moore is I don't know if you guys saw, but Kenya Moore from Atlanta, and this is getting off topic, but is now coming for Garcelle, saying that we'll talk about it when we get to Beverly Hills. But it's just like, it's just now the discourse is already starting, and it's just unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate.
The point that I was waiting to make is like, I just hope that we don't lose an Ebony like 2 seasons too soon, because she gets sick of trying to continually educate these women who don't want to be educated.
Right.
And like you said, she has like no one else to really relate to. Like, bring on 2 Black women. You know what I mean? Like, and also if I'm a Black woman who then is like obviously they're paid to do this, but like, do I want to take on the task of trying to integrate myself into 4 to 6 other like white rich women that I know I live a different lifestyle than? Like, do I want to take on this? Is a lot. And so like I completely respect everything she's doing. I love that when she has the opportunity to bring something up that she does, and she doesn't back down from it, and she will say it, and she will like she defends herself and lets them know like, I'm saying this because it's not just because I'm doing whatever you think I am. Like, these are the reasonings for it. And I just hope she doesn't get tired too soon of having to do this, because that's the thing. She has to. There's no other choice. She doesn't have the option to not try and educate these women, but it shouldn't be her role. It should be,
Right.
if these people were actually her friends and not just being paid to be her colleagues on a TV show, that they would go out of their way to learn more. But they won't. We know this. So yeah. That's my biggest fear for her, is that like we're gonna lose, because I love having her on here so far. Like we've said, breath of fresh air, outstanding. Like, but that's my biggest concern about it, is we're gonna lose her because she gets sick of having to constantly be the educator when that's not her job.
Yeah.
And that's why I got happy that Garcelle didn't leave after her first season, because she was like, like thrown like on the middle of the group that is just like, and she was like, I only have Denise here, and if Denise leaves, I'm gonna leave too. But I'm so glad that she stayed, because she is now like, you know what? If you guys have a problem with me, you better leave, because I'm not going anywhere. So I really hope that Ebony takes that attitude for the next season, like make them all quit, like don't leave the show.
Imagine Ebony gets to do the casting for next season. I'm
I
here
would
for
love
it.
that.
I'm here for it.
I would love that too.
And that's very common, like not to do the casting, but like to bring people in, like to nominate someone. So I really hope that Ebony like some, powerful, influential, like Black women in New York or from other minority groups. I don't know. I would love to see, like, I think we have an OC now, like, a lesbian housewife that's still married with a guy. I don't know, because I don't watch the OC. Yeah, OC.
Yeah.
But I would love to see like different kind of groups, maybe like a very powerful like trans women, like all these different things that, I don't know. I think it'll be fun.
I think the problem, and I mean, you look at Bravo and they've segregated these cities so much. Like the only Black housewives have been in Atlanta and Potomac, and every other city has had no women of color or no diversity. They add one person, they think that they're doing their jobs, but they just need to do better. I mean, it's just called the Real Housewives. These are not the Real Housewives of anything. This is not representative of what New York City looks like. It's not representative of what Beverly Hills looks like. It's not representative of what Dallas looks like. Like, let's just do better. And I hope that the conversations that are being had in every single city right now are showing them that they need to do more.
Yes.
Because it's a topic in every city. That Tiffany Moon has gone through it. Crystal and Garcelle are going through it. Ebony is really going through it. It's a mess. So I just hope that they see what kind of the monster is that they've created, and they do a little bit to fix it.
Yeah, we have to stop like trying to appease the like 45-year-old mother in Iowa, and start trying to integrate different lifestyles, different diversity, ethnicity, all that into this in order to really catch up with the times, is what it comes down to. Like you can't like be progressive. You can't say you're progressive and then just keep casting 6 white women to entertain these people. So
agreed.
And I feel like the Real Housewives, like, it started like with this premise to show like the life beyond the gates, behind the gates, and also like to do like a little parallel like with the Desperate Housewives kind of stuff. It started like that, but it's not that anymore. Like people don't watch to know, like what happened like in celebrities' life. Like it's not about that. It's more about like, like the day to day of, like a middle-aged women, that is powerful in control of her life, or if she wants to, be the trophy wife, whatever, like all these different kinds. They put them to interact and create situations. So I think like this model of just like life behind the gates, like really to like richness and real, like that's not anymore. Like I really don't think they should be doing that.
All right. Well, we have, I mean, we're 45 minutes into this, and I think we're like 8 minutes into the episode. So, no, it's fine. I will stay here and talk about this all night. I have no other plans. We get to Luann's house. Okay, Luann said something, and I'm going to preface this with, I do not have a penis, so I don't understand how to control it. But Luann goes, he needs to be mentally prepared to be able to handle his down there. So, Leo, I'm not going to put you on the spot or anything here, but what did you think of her saying this? Like, do you find yourself in situations where it's like, I really especially need to think about not getting a boner right now? Or
Like,
I'm kidding. You don't have to answer
no,
that.
I'm gonna answer that, and I feel like this is something that we need to talk about. That that's actually pretty true. But like when you were 12, 13, going to puberty and just starting to get the whole hormones boiling, like this happens on Big Mouth on Netflix. It shows very
I saw
well.
that one.
So
Yep.
that is a full grown ass man. That he shouldn't be worried about that. Like shouldn't at all. So yeah, that's a very poor vision of like what's happening down there. But also, it shows that these women need to talk about sex more, So I'm gonna give that to Leah.
The thing I don't get is like, does first of all of the women that this man is looking at are like fully clothed? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like they're in like scantily clad clothing, doing sexual arousing things. Like it. You know what I mean? Like, also, so does Luann just think like all of them are hot enough that like when it's just boner city, like population nude model? That was the thing that's like, there's a few things that went through my mind in this that I had to bring it up because I just thought it was so outlandish that someone this experienced with men.
And there's a thing about like assuming people's sexuality,
Right.
He didn't like, I don't want to do that, but like he didn't seem too straight in my opinion but like, I don't know, like why are you even worried about that?
Right.
If it gets hard, just paint it the way it is. I don't know. Like I don't know.
He also was very like into the theatrics of it all. Like he was like, you have to take my sarong off me. And then when Luann was like, oh, are you cold? He's like, I don't know. Am I? And I was like, oh, okay, this is like a little, this guy, I don't know what this guy's deal is, but this is like a little, not uncomfortable, but like, he's really like leaning in.
Yeah.
That these like women are just like staring at his naked, apparently in betweeny weenie as his in betweeny weenie.
In betweeny weenie. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, yes. So anyway, we get the first car of women showing up because we have two cars because there's glam going on. And we get Ramona saying like, yeah, Ebony and Leah are still back at the house getting their makeup done. Luann then goes on about how Sonia is always jealous of the people she has around. Cue Garth, the Adonis that he is. So Luann and Heather are talking about how good Garth is, and one of the things that Luann really likes about him is that he doesn't drink. But we also get that 12 mere minutes later, that Ebony and Leah show up.
Which Ebony did say she only had about 15 minutes to go.
Yeah. So does it now? I feel like it seemed more dramatic then that like it was only 12 minutes later. It wasn't like 45 minutes, an hour, that type of thing. And Ramona, like I think one of the qualities that Ramona has that just makes me like get annoyed is that she is very good at unnecessarily bringing things up over and over and over again. Like the makeup's done, the people are there, you are at the event, and then just still be like, I still don't know why you needed glam.
Yes, let it go.
Yeah.
I feel like you say like this. I just had like a little like epiphany, I think, and I feel like Leah and Ramona are very similar. That's why they don't get along. Like they both like to be in control of the narrative. They don't let things go. So maybe that's why they're picking a little bit.
I can see that. I think they both want to be like the biggest personality in the room, or like whatever they say goes, and neither one of them will let the other person do that.
I'm gonna
also-
look for
Oh, go ahead.
Leah's birth chart right now. Just wanna know if they are the
Oh
same
my
person.
gosh. So hilarious. But again, we get Ramona like harping on things because Ebony says like, I've had too much to drink last night. And Ramona's like, yeah, that's why you misheard me. And I love it. Ebony was like, I know, I'm apologizing. Like, I said something I shouldn't have. Like, I can use SAT words, but I can also curse as well. So we're getting a little bit of foreshadowing of education here.
Yeah.
Ebony is on that Magoosh study plan. I have paid for that before too, Ebony. Don't you worry. It did not do me any good on the GRE, but whatever. So we're setting up for the fight. I don't want to call it the fight. The argument. The is there a better word? Come up with a better word for me. I'm not.
Unfortunate conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's really just unfortunate. It's unfortunate.
And that thing was like, I don't even know if we can call it a conversation, because I feel like in a conversation you listen to people, and there, as Heather said, no one's listening to each other here, but we'll get to that. So we get Leah being like, I'm glad Luann isn't mad about us being late. And Sonia was like, no one was pissed. It's just that Ramona was hungry and wanted to get out of there. So I do appreciate that Sonia, like, she has her friendship with Ramona, but also can be a good friend to the other women and also be realistic. And I think we're seeing that a bit more this season than maybe in some other instances where it's been like, when she teams up with someone, she's like ride or die for them to an annoying extent of like defends them, like what she was like that with Bethany at some points, with Ramona at some points, whatever, Luann. That I like that we're getting a little bit more of like an even keeled Sonia.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes somewhere that Sonia is just a good friend. And I feel like you can see it throughout the episode. Like, this is one part of it where I feel like she is just like a normal, like, can have a regular conversation with somebody and not have to like push a narrative forward. You see it a little bit later on when Leah's upset about her grandmother and she's just like, I'm just giving you space. And I'm just like, everybody needs somebody like Sonia. Sober Sonia.
Sober Sonia.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if we need a drunk Sonia, but we need a sober Sonia who's just there, chill. You can talk to her like she's, a reasonable person, and that's it.
Yes, I feel like we're gonna go through like the conversation that happened, and like Sonia, like not that she surprised me, but the way that she like handled it, like with like she stuck up for Ebony, she was right there, and she like was talking to Luann about it, like no, she didn't do this, like it. That's like I feel like, without knowing, what like an ally is, Sonia was being an ally, and I'd appreciate Sonia so much for that.
Yeah, agreed.
So once we have that little bit of a conversation, we then get Alfredo showing up, which is my favorite pasta sauce. And it's so high in calories though. But anyway, this is who Luann wanted to hook up with Sonia. Like, she wanted to match these two together. And Sonia, I'm not going to date an artist. I'm an artist. Is artist one of the top 3 words you think of when you describe Sonia?
Not even one of the top 50. Like, what is her art?
I don't know. I think she wanted to say like she's a free-spirited or something like that, but an artist, but not an artist.
No.
So she says that Luann has no idea what she likes, and then they cut to Luann being like, I'm offering up an artist, a male, a guy who has a penis. Penis. I've said this word a few times in my life. I don't know why I'm making up a pronunciation.
Be careful, Ramona's gonna show up and slap you in the face. Don't
say it 3 times. Like Beetlejuice.
I have to click my heels, say it 3 times, and then Ramona shows up. What a blessing that would be. So Luann's like, she can flirt with them, and Sonia, none to artists, I'm into bankers. Well, that worked out well for her last time, though. Oh, okay. There's something I knew I need to bring up about Sonia, which, Katie, as a massive fan, I'm glad you're here for my questions on this. What do you guys know about, this isn't related to the episode, what do you guys know about the, like, fallout of Sonia's marriage?
I
Because
don't.
I did a little bit of reading this past week.
Oh.
So I'm ready for this conversation.
So I've read about this in the past. It's a little fuzzy, but I know it had something to do with Sonia's husband either getting sick or something, and she was like skiing out in like the Swiss Alps, and her friend was there taking care of him, or she just like was too much of a socialite and wasn't really there for the back. I don't know, something along the lines of that. And he left her for her friend.
So from what I read was that you have a lot of it there is that her husband fell ill. And as she was kind of like out gallivanting, doing her thing, sleeping with other men, thinking like my husband's going to die, her best friend started taking care of her husband. And surprisingly, her husband got better and didn't die. And so then left Sonia for Sonia's best friend, and they're married. I know that like they implied things throughout all the seasons saying like stop playing the victim, essentially, like you kind of caused your own divorce and you get all
Dorinda
dramatic.
will say that.
Yeah,
100%,
Dorinda
yeah.
will say anything that will make you cry. So
Yes.
don't let her know your weaknesses, your faults, your flaws, because
Right.
she will come at them with the goddamn machete.
Yep.
But I just thought that was interesting because like with all the insinuations we've gotten over the seasons to then find that out, it kind of makes me like lose a little bit of empathy for Sonia. But I mean, that's so far in the past, but she always brings it up. So it's kind of hard to be like, it is in the past. I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to know like if you guys had heard about it, read about it, had any opinions. And
I feel like I never had a ton of empathy for Sonia. I like Sonia. Some seasons I like her more than other seasons. Sometimes I'm like, I think maybe it's time we get rid of Sonia. But I'm glad that we haven't. I'm happy she's still here. But I think she lives in a fantasy world that she's created for herself, and I think we've seen it since she joined the show, and since maybe not when she joined. When she joined, she was like a little bit more even keel, but as the seasons have gone on, she's gotten like more and more out there. Mm-hmm. But like even in her businesses and the things she said, it's like you don't live in reality. So you can't, and I think that's why Dorinda really had a hard time sometimes and was like so nasty to her about like the crest and the Morgan letters and all of it. She's like, that is not your family. It's her daughter's family. I get where she's coming from. I think it's all like a little fucking whacked, to be honest. I don't know what Sonia's doing what her deal is.
Sonia, she's still trapped in the past. Like she still lives, on that place that she is, Sonia Morgan, and she is well known in New York City, and she has, she's part of like the niche, right? She's part of like the creme de la creme. And I don't think I think she has realized that this time has gone, but she doesn't want to admit it, So therapy, like I said, go to therapy, figure that shit out, and you're going to be way happier, move on. Because she keeps using her daughter as excuse, but I think she knows that she kind of fucked it up in the past, and she's having a hard time to acknowledge that and move on. So that's what I take from it, but I don't know her personally, I don't know the details of it, but it just seemed like she cannot let it go.
I also don't know her personally, but I assume the internet will never lie to me. So I'm just going to take that as absolute fact, and there's no way it could be wrong. The Ramona got me here. She definitely made me laugh when we were talking about Luann trying to hook Sonia up with Alfredo, and Ramona goes, Sonia likes Luann's type, not this artist type, but Sonia can't get them because Luann takes all those men.
Yep. That did make me laugh. And I felt bad for poor Alfredo. He seemed so nice.
Right?
He seemed so sweet, and they were so mean to poor Alfredo. I really felt for him.
I loved Alfredo.
Loved him.
But I love that moment when he was singing and Ramona was dancing.
Oh,
it was
my
so
God.
I don't know. There was something about it that like you don't see that much often in Brony. It's just like Ramona enjoying the music, and I feel like the melody made Leah think about her grandmother, and she got like a little emotional. Like, I appreciate that. That's the power of art, the power of music, and that was very fun and genuine.
Yes.
Because we don't get a lot of genuine on these reality TV shows, but that seemed like a very genuine moment.
See, I didn't think it was genuine at all. I was like, shut the fuck up, Ramona. Like this, I cannot tolerate you right now. Yes, I watched that and it was just like, oh, this is dumb. Like I had the exact opposite read.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
Yeah, I just was like, oh my, like I don't know. Is this really touching you this deeply, Ramona? Is it? That was how I felt about it. So
let me believe
it's my truth, and I'm going to talk about it on my podcast like I'm Heather. Okay.
No, now that you say that, I'm rethinking it. Like, am I like being biased towards Ramona? But like,
I also don't like Ramona, so anything she does, I'm like, get the fuck out. So
I don't like Ramona as a person. Like, she's a vile person.
Yeah.
For the TV show, she's great TV.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say that. She's great TV. But I felt like I was just happy that Alfredo was getting a little love because I felt like Leah was being really judgmental. I felt like Sonia was being judgmental. I felt like they were being a little mean to poor Alfredo. And I'm glad that Ramona was showing him a little love with her little sensual lip biting dance she was doing. I liked it.
Yeah, my judgment on that has nothing to do with Alfredo, and it was all about Ramona.
Yes,
you play your tunes and do your thing, Alfredo. I support you entirely.
We love Alfredo.
Yes, both the pasta sauce and the person.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We are Alfredo positive podcast.
Yes,
so,
yes.
We go next to the nude painting. Sonia says I've never painted a nude model, but she's also never been a stripper. So there's times for everything. Thank you for connecting those two things, Sonia. And here is where we get the model saying, I can't take this off by myself.
Did that feel professional to you? It didn't feel I mean, obviously we're not in a professional setting.
No.
Like,
if it was like a bachelorette party, sure, but like
it's not.
That's a Saturday afternoon or something in the fucking Hamptons. Like,
yeah.
And you're doing this in professional. I'm just like resting my legs.
I was gonna say, are you gonna start giving us new model poses? Are we supposed to paint you?
We're gonna paint you.
No, my leg's just hurting.
I can only draw you with the 4 Sharpie gel pens I have next to me, so I won't do you any justice. Sorry in advance. I hope you like the color red.
I can paint you with lipstick. That's all I have near me.
Yeah. You don't want me doing that, Leo. You don't want this.
I don't.
So I did think it was kind of funny that we got like different snippets of different women basically being like, yo, dude's packing. Like he's got a big dick. And again, so maybe because I like Leah, I thought that it was funny when she's like, Ramona loves dick. She might hate the word, but she loves dick. And you could just tell Ramona was like all about what was going on there. But Ramona did leave the whole little thing first with Leah soon to follow. What do you guys think of all of this happening?
That was a mood. I don't like art. I mean, I can appreciate it, but I'm not an artist, and I can only stand there for a couple of minutes and like pretend to draw something without it looking like total shit. Because like I'm not an artist, I know it's gonna look bad. So she participated, and then she's like, "Okay, I'm done," and I appreciate that. I would have done the same.
Absolutely, I would do the same too. Like I can't draw. Like what I'm gonna do?
Yeah,
like
that's not fun for me.
Yeah, it's not fun for me either.
My nightmare is going to a fucking wine and paint night. Like that's literally something I never want to do in my life. And if I'm invited, I don't care if it's like Barack Obama inviting me. I'm gonna be like, sorry, bro, I can't. You want to like grab dinner somewhere instead?
Same.
So I don't even know if you would have gotten me to that house unless you were paying me like I am one of the housewives to do something like that. And it's not like the new model aspect of it. It's just like, that's not fun for me.
It's not fun for me either.
So I supported her being like, all right, I tried it. I'm out. That's more than I would have done. I wouldn't have even shown up. So,
and then Victoria was like, we're going to do 5 minutes in this pose and then 5 minutes in another, and then 10 minutes in this, and then 20 minutes. I was like, okay, bitch, we're doing too much right now with this. Let's do a quick 5-minute little toot on the paper and then be done with it. We'll eat the lamb curry that Garth cooked up for us. Like, we don't need a whole day long excursion of painting this naked man in multiple poses.
No.
It's just too much. No one wants that.
I'll just like take my phone and take a picture and call it a day. Like That's it.
I probably would have had my hair and makeup take longer, so I could have shown
Just
up
so you
in
could
time
miss
for
it.
the lamb curry.
Mhm.
Because I definitely would have been on board for that, but not for the drawing and the art
Right.
portion of it.
Right.
So this is actually the next part where we get Alfredo playing his own music, and
Poor Alfredo.
we've talked about it, so we can just keep it moving. Then we get, so he's saying, I've never been so hands off with a naked man in front of me, which I thought was classic Sonia, who she's allowed to say these things, but if Leah said it, Ramona would get mad. But Leah goes, I have vertigo again. And Ramona goes, if you actually have vertigo, you have fallen over. Just sit. So I don't have vertigo.
Nor do I.
Leo, vertigo?
No. I know people who does.
Same.
Like elderly people, like aunts, and I think my mom has vertigo. I don't know, but I
it's
don't.
not all about falling. So
Yeah, imagine there are different like severity levels of your vertigo as well.
Yeah. But I just like Ramona's lack of sympathy for really anybody when it doesn't like serve her best interest is just like a classic staple of that woman. Like when she realizes like, oh, if I care about her right now, I can apologize and people will stop being angry at me, so I'll care right now. Or, you know, like just sit down, just rub some dirt on it, you'll be fine, block it off. It builds character.
Yeah.
It's like my dad every time I got an injury growing up. But Leah tries to open up a little bit and says, like, I'm stressing over my grandmother. I physically don't feel well. And then this is where Ramona gets into, like, I know your grandmother knows and loves you more than anyone else in your life, which just, like, makes Leah more emotional. I don't know if I would have gone that route, but...
That was so bizarre. Everything she was saying was like, no one gets you like your grandmother, and you're losing your grandmother as the only person who loves you. It's like, what is this helping?
Nope.
Are you
Her
helping?
answer is no.
Do you think that you're helping? Like, I just don't understand where she was going with that.
And who that's coming from, you know, like that's, if it was like someone else closer that knew about that could be a different story, but like it's literally Ramona, someone that you have beef with, like what do you even know, why do you even care? That was bad.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, there's just no awareness, but that's again not a surprise in season 13 of this. I can't believe she's been on TV for 13 years. That's crazy.
She sure has.
That's over 3 presidential terms.
Wow, so, I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I like to put things in terms of presidential terms. It's one of my like staple units of time.
I like that.
Yeah, so it's either like decades, presidential terms, or pregnancies are like my 3.
Oh,
yeah, I use those a lot.
Okay. I like that.
I'm giving you all my secrets. So, but then we get Ebony coming in and I think doing a better job of consoling Leah. But I think it also is easy to look better at it once you're following Ramona. But she's like, don't feel bad about feeling bad. And Leah says, I'm going to miss her so much. And Ebony continues to comfort her. I'm so used to confronting people that like someone's comforting
on this show.
What the
fuck? Did
I type this right? All right, but we're about to get into the heat of it here, because then once we get back from the commercial break, it is lunch. And Ebony, when Leah isn't sitting there, just says, like, Leah's emotional. It's hitting her very hard. Losing the person who tells her she's the most losing the person who tells her she's the most worthwhile. And then this is where I'm interested in what you guys think. Not that I'm not interested in any other part where you guys think, but Ramona goes, that's where we have conflict. She looks up to me as an older sister, and when I don't give her the feedback she wants, she gets mad at me. Is this how you see it?
No.
I kind of do.
I
kind of do. I know it feels like I'm really agreeing with a lot of what Ramona says, and I know I don't like Leah, but I do feel like Leah has this weird relationship with Ramona, and we saw it last season, we see it this season, where she needs approval, or like if Ramona says something against Leah, she takes it so much differently than if the other women say something against her. And it's I don't know if it's that like she feels similarly or like reminds her of her mom, or she has like a bad relationship with her mom and she sees Ramona as like I don't want to say a motherly figure because they barely know each other. Like, but someone like appear to her mom who also is not accepting her. I feel like it like brings something out of her subconsciously. Then maybe not an older sister, but like there's something there where it's like a struggle for Leah to feel accepted by Ramona. And if Ramona doesn't accept her for whatever reason, she becomes this like rebellious teen almost and does everything she can to like make Ramona upset with her.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Katie. Like put in that way. Like I said before, I do feel like it's about the similarities of them, and they like they go at each other because they don't like to see. Maybe Leah doesn't like to see herself in a few years, but that can totally relate to like to a motherly figure or like someone in the family. So yeah, I agree with you there, Katie.
I also feel like Ramona sees Leah as a daughterly figure. Is that how you say it? Because she even says like my daughter doesn't speak that way. I think they both do it to each other. I don't think it's only on Leah's side. I think she also looks at Leah as someone who's not really that close to Avery's age. I mean, she's like what 37 or 38, but she's significantly younger than Ramona. So it's I think she does see her as someone who's younger and needs guidance.
Yes.
I think they both just go to the like almost shallow and easiest reference of mother, sister, family type of bond when I mean like really the people who I'm not blood related to that I consider family, it's because we do get along so well and it's like if you need me to murder someone for you, I'm probably going to do it. And so I don't think that there's that type of relationship between these two. And I think it's more of like the points that you made of like they are very similar. I think that they butt heads a lot and they're like the insecurities that especially Leah gets brought out of her by Ramona remind her of the ones that like her mother has brought out. So I don't want to say it's like I think if anything there's a reminder and there's like some triggering stuff, but like to say that they have a familial type of relationship, I think is just because like they don't go deeper into thinking about actually it's because you bring up trauma for me. I think it's easier to just be like, oh, it's this type of bond. So like I understand the connection, but I just don't agree with it. But I think that like the points they're making from this connection are completely valid. There just needs to be a better name that like, even describe like the turbulence and maybe even toxicity of it to an extent. So that's just my opinion, but I get 100% what you're saying, Katie. I think I'm just taking like the negative perspective.
No, I don't think it's. Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing is just like a hot mess. I don't think they probably see each other as family. I think it's like the age difference, and Leah reminds Ramona of Avery in some ways, and Ramona reminds Leah of her mom in some ways, and they both like take that out on each other. I don't think they feel like they're as close as family. I mean, if that's what Ramona meant, then she's on another planet, which we know she is, but like there's no way. They hate each other, so there's no way that they feel like family.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I can kind of relate because, like, being a teacher, so anytime I see someone that could have been my student, which, to be fair, I started teaching really fucking young. So, like, I was only like 4 or 5 years older than my students when I first started teaching. That's like your child. Well, you're 28. I don't care. You're still a child to me. Like, that automatic, like, because this is what I'm comfortable with, like, Ramona and Avery, like, you are this much younger than me. You do not fall into the friend category. You fall into like you are a grown-up child to me. I think that's like we kind of see resurface time and time again in their relationship with Leah being the kid. Like, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. Like, I'm doing enough to annoy you, but you can't say anything about it. And Ramona just wanting to be like, go the fuck to your room. You're not having dessert tonight.
Yeah, and just to like go off topic a little bit, but it's still on the same thing. Like I'm watching Potomac right now, and like there's the same thing that happened with Ashley and Karen at the beginning, right? Because Karen feels that she has to be the like the mother, the mentor kind of situation, and Ashley is just like this young girl that doesn't give a shit and doesn't want to be mentored, and like. So I feel like it's a similar thing. Like Ramona kind of says, like, "Oh, if you want to hang out with this group, these are the rules. I'm setting the rules right here." And Lee is just like, "Nope, like I'm in this group, I'm as much part of it as you are, and there's no rules here. So I do feel like this like age thing could be like a huge factor on
Yeah.
that.
Remind me to bring up something at the end about all of the Housewives I've watched so far. But Leandra, where are you in Potomac?
I am halfway through season 4 right now.
Okay, so you're a season ahead of me at the moment. I'm like just over halfway through season 3. I will catch you.
Yeah.
Potomac is everything, by the way. It's
It
the
is.
best. It's
It
the
is.
best out of all of them.
It's so good.
It's really good. I can't wait to talk about that one like in real life. It's gonna be good. Okay.
The new season, the new trailer looks amazing. But
I
anyway.
have been avoiding it because
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
want to.
Yeah. I'm not like that deep in the internet of Real Housewives yet because there's so many seasons I haven't seen. So I've only watched all of Beverly Hills, all of New York City, and now I've started Potomac. Like this is a very new, recent fascination for me. But I mean, I've watched so many Housewives seasons in the last like 3 to 4 months. So I've like looked at some of that stuff, but I don't want to like go to the subreddit too much because then you find out things and remember. But anyway, that's where I'm at in my life, in case you're wondering, Katie.
I'm deep in it all. Since the beginning, deep in it all.
Yeah, I am a very late bloomer. I will eventually be deep in it all, but like we're still taking floaties off, and I'm doing the Ramona swimming with a noodle right now. Like, I bring my noodle with me on vacation.
Perfect.
So something that just I think is worth noting is Sonia admits the curry is good. So
she does. I was actually very surprised that she admitted it. I thought she was going to hate on it so hard.
I think she was just tell us in the confessional, but not to Luann's face.
That's true.
But we got it in the confessional, so that's how you know it's true. So here is where we bring up last night. Luann asked what she missed. She said she heard Ebony yelling, "Oh, Ramona," and Ebony goes, "Well, I used language that Ramona didn't like," and Leah says, "Ramona and I were talking about how she likes me, but she doesn't like how I talk about sex." And also then they start talking about how like it's the Christian values, and they cut to Leah being like, "We cannot talk about Ramona and Christian values in the same sentence. She lied about donating blood plasma." Leo, does your Twitter user handle have anything that he needs to say about
I am
this?
just the blood plasma. I have nothing to do what Ramona does. I'm here. I haven't been donated. That's all I can say about myself.
I told him, I went to DM him when I like had the idea of us starting this weekly podcast, and I thought he blocked me or something because I couldn't find him under Leandro. And then I was like, wait a second, and I searched Ramona, and this motherfucker pops up. I'm like, I'm so mad at you for doing this.
I'm just waiting for something more chaotic to happen, so I changed my name to that.
I love it.
So far, nothing has stopped Ramona saying your blood plasma. I'm sorry.
But we cut back to it, and where am I in my notes? Because this goes on a lot, and everyone's name begins with L right now.
With the Christians, Ramona being a Christian.
So that's what Luann is saying. Like, some people were raised this way with this like Catholic conservative. We don't talk about this. And Leah goes, "It's hard for me because there's some hypocrisy with all of this. I've seen her run around in her thong. I've seen her shake her boobs at me. And Luann goes, it makes her uncomfortable. And Leah goes, but Sonia says the same stuff. Luann says, there's words you use that are offensive to her. And Ramona chimes in, my daughter doesn't talk about sex this way. And Leah goes, you think your daughter's going to talk to you about sex? I think we can cut off here for some commentary before we keep going, because then, we get Sonia involved a little bit. We get Leah storming off after. So what do you think of like this leading up to before Leah goes the fuck off?
I didn't like the comment that Leah did about like she was probably sucking dicks when she was 14. Like, I think that was crossing a line, because that didn't sound like in a sex positive way. It sounded like more in a shameful
Shaming way.
you know, like in a shaming way. So that's when I feel like she went overboard, and like, you don't have the right to do that. We know every Instagram woman, she can do whatever she wants to do, but that's not your fucking problem. She's not a part of the show. Leave Avery out of it. You
I
know?
completely agree.
Yeah, I think she went overboard with that.
And I feel like, and I kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but I feel like even if it's that talking about it makes Ramona uncomfortable, that has nothing to do with what she does behind closed doors. I just feel like they're two separate things, right? There's like a whole scale of sex positivity, right? Just because Ramona is not sex positive in the way that Leah is sex positive and wants to talk about it all the time, doesn't mean that she's not. Who cares what she's doing on the weekend or in her personal life? If she doesn't want to talk about it, she doesn't have to talk about it. If it makes her uncomfortable to talk about it, then it makes her uncomfortable to talk about it. I understand the point of the hypocrisy, but Leo, to your point, I feel like Leah is almost shaming Ramona for not being comfortable talking about it, which in itself is not, that's not sex positive. It's her calling her a hypocrite and saying you were shaking your titties and you did all this stuff. That doesn't, they're two very different things. And I just feel like Leah wants it all her way and she refuses to bend. And if someone is saying to you, I don't like it when you speak to me that way, then just fucking respect it and don't speak to them that way. And I think we'll get into the Ebony of it all, but Ebony said to Lou, I won't talk to you that way because you told me you don't like it. That's all it takes, is saying, I don't like when you speak like this. It has nothing to do with what I'm doing on the side or whatever. It's not about the sex. It's about the conversation about the sex and I don't want to have it. Then don't fucking have it. Why do you need to push her and push her and push her just to make an argument for TV? Because it's getting old. It's just old.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is just like, and like, I'm gonna talk a little bit about feminism here. So like, girls, if I'm stepping my way, please, say Leo. That's
Get
not
your dick out of our feminism.
Exactly. but seriously, I do feel like it with all like social groups and like all the most democratic like groups that fight for this kind of stuff, they defend like the right of the entire thing, right? So I do feel like the feminism, like they defend the right of the women to be whatever she wants to be. If she wants to be, like a hoe, like I'm gonna use the word Aaliyah say, and just walk around talking about dicks with showing her tits out, that's fine, But if there's a woman, she's fine with being the traditional housewife that just stay at home, that is more like prude. That's fine too, It's a way to for those things like coexist, and not like have a pattern of like how women should be. So I feel like even though neither of them do that, I feel like Leah wants to control Ramona to not talk about sex, and Leah wants to control Ramona to be more sex positive, in quote unquote quotation marks. But like, it's not what's the word for me? Come on, English. Show up.
We love our ESL podcasters.
No, but it doesn't seem like accurate to the beliefs that they say they both do, But we see Leah like saying that more loud than Ramona when it comes to these terms. So did it make sense what I said about like?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
I think if Leah wanted to actually make her point here, she's using the wrong things to make her point, is because I do believe, or I do agree to an extent with Leah that Ramona is being hypocritical about this for a couple of reasons. Sonia can say this shit and it's not a big issue. And Ramona's made comments like this that we've seen on the show. So if your thing is going to be, well, you show your tits and are in a thong, whatever, that's not, I don't think, equivalent to being at a dinner table and saying like whatever about dicks, but like sex, whatever it might be. That I think it's more like, well, first of all, you're never going to make your point in this situation, but if you can recall, like, okay, there's times where you said this or Sonia said this, I just need to like, the boundary is gray to me and I'm not sure I understand it. I do think she can have a point, but she doesn't do it well, especially here. But like you said, Katie, I mean, like I was thinking of my best friend hates the C word.
Yeah.
I love it. I will drop it liberally.
Same.
But do you want to know what I don't do in front of my best friend? Use the C word because she's told me not to.
Sure.
And I think it's as easy as what you said. I agree with you on that. And Leah just kind of needs to like let it go, even if there are parts of it that I agree with. Like, I'm also kind of sick of the same argument over and over.
Same.
I also feel like it's just a sign of immaturity on Leah's point where she can't, I'm not saying she has to censor herself, but I don't talk to my parents or my boss or other colleagues that work the same way I talk to you guys or my friends or whatever. And it's all about knowing the boundaries of people and knowing what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Is it inappropriate to talk about sex with your friends? No, it's not. But if someone says to you, I don't like the words that you're using and you're making me uncomfortable, then just don't do it. And if you can't do that, then that says more about you, I think, than it does about the person who's asking you not to do it. Like, just rein it in a little bit, censor yourself, and you'll be fine. But she has to then become this like rebellious teenager and just have to act out. And that's not getting you anywhere. It's not doing you any favors. And it just feels like she's trying to be like a shock jock about it. Like, just, wants to be edgy and wants to talk about all this stuff because it makes other people uncomfortable. And she thinks that's cool. And like, it's not really. It's not cool.
And the thing is, like in real life, the problem, like we follow like different paths, right? They wouldn't be friends in real life. That wouldn't happen. But they are in a show that they're both cast, and they have to like deal with their differences somehow. So someone's gonna have to like let it go, like for the sake of the audience, because nobody like can take this conversation anymore. It has been like 3 episodes, 4 episodes, 5. I don't know, 5 episodes.
Even last season,
I put it at the top for some reason. Episode 5.
5, and it's annoying already. Like just
already. Like it has been. I'm sure all 3 of us have experienced this in our real life where I want to make a scene about this. I genuinely do, but this is not the battle I'm going to choose to fight because I can see that there are bigger, harder battles where like I need my words to matter more. And I'm just going to be maybe not even the bigger person, but I'm going to swallow my pride on this one. But trust me, I'll come when there's something better. And like, just, I think at this point she has to take the L on this one and just let it go.
Agreed.
Sonia made an interesting comment to me, though, where Sonia says, why can't she be herself? So I felt like this was in defense of Leah, and no one really, like, responded to Sonia in this. Do you think more, like, do we see more of Sonia defending Leah in upcoming? Do you think that, like, Sonia kind of sees it?
That's a direction it's going to take. I do think so. I feel like it's walking to be more like a Leah, Sonia, Ebony kind of group.
Yeah.
With Luann. Maybe, I don't know if Luann's going to be part of this. No, she's not going to be part of this group. But Luann, Ramona, more on the outside.
Well, we've already seen that those two have become such closer friends since moving close to each other, which is wild. My dog is growling, so when he starts barking, just know that he feels very strongly about something. So that friendship alone is crazy to me. But so we get, let's see, Ramona mentions that Leah purposely causes trouble once we're getting along, but she's also really sensitive right now because her grandmother is dying. I took her to dinner and she was using the P word in front of my daughter. And then the flashback shows that like she stopped before she said, like she implied she was talking about dude's dick, but like didn't actually say it. And Ramona was like trying to give her a timeout and like telling her to stop, where like Avery and her friends were kind of just like sitting there listening, where my guess is if I'm Avery and her friends that they like maybe jump in on this conversation if Ramona's not there, but like make comments. But because Ramona is, then like Ramona goes into like mom mode. And so I can understand like the frustration of like, your daughter's an adult, but do our parents ever actually see us as adults?
No. And that part, I'm glad that you brought up this clip because like that to me felt like Leah was in the wrong because Avery is not going to want to talk about this in front of her mom, regardless of like what you see on TV. Also, why are they even all out to dinner together? That's weird in itself. But like, I don't know. The whole thing that made me feel like Leah was just doing it again, just to like push a button.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like talking about things like that in front of my mom. I'm in my 30s, mid 30s, and I'm like closer to Leah's age than I am to Avery's age, and I don't talk about that type of stuff in front of my mom or anybody's mom. It's just like that's uncomfortable to me. So like I understand why Ramona was like, stop, like don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Felt like almost disrespectful of Leah in a way to do that.
I agree as well, and that's what gets us to Ebony chiming in, which brings us to like part 2 of this heavyweight match of Ebony saying, your daughter doesn't talk that way, but Leah isn't your daughter. And Ramona goes, she needs to respect me, which I thought was interesting because I think it's and again, I'm going to like put my teacher hat on here. I deal with a lot of colleagues who are older than me who just expect to be respected because they're in the power position, the authority position. And that came across that way to me in this situation because I do think that Ramona has shown instances of respecting Leah, and it's also been reciprocated, but I don't think that there is really a base level of respect for each other. And so Ramona saying that she needs to respect me just felt very like, I'm older. I've been here longer. I'm the housewife of this show. You know, like her and Luann have been here for the whole thing. Like she needs to respect me. What did you guys take away from that? Anything at all? Or am I just being dramatic about it?
No, like, you know, nothing different from what we have said already.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like Ramona is this huge powerhouse. Like she has this huge ego. She has been on the show for the long, and she comes from that place that, you know, like the longer you are at the place, the more respect you have, you know. So like, in her opinion, Leah is less than her, and nobody is gonna change her mind of that, you know. So she, for example, I don't feel like, you know, like Leah belongs like to the Hamptons, to that kind of country club style, you know. So everything like it's just not gonna like happen, you know. Like she thinks that, and she's just gonna be like, Leah, you know, like need to respect me, you know, like I am the OG, you know, you just got here. So I don't necessarily agree with it, but it's gonna happen. We have seen 12 seasons of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so after this, we get Ebony saying, okay, but using those words doesn't make you unclassy, which Ramona says, I never said that. It made me feel uncomfortable. And Luann goes, it has nothing to do with classes, everything to do with education. And you can see that this is where a nerve is especially been struck with Ebony. And Ebony goes, well, that's not true because I'm the most educated person in this group. I like how Ramona goes, you don't know my education. And Ebony goes, yes, I do. I Googled everyone.
Amazing. And then Ramona laughed. I mean, like that was a funny moment in all of it. And she was like, what did you Google me? And she said, yes, I do. I Google everyone I speak to.
Yeah.
And Ramona laughed. I mean, that was funny.
Yeah. So Ebony says that. We get Luann going, you think your degree makes you more educated? And Ebony goes, does anybody else have a terminal degree here, meaning a doctorate? And or like a law degree. And so Leah had walked away, but then had come back at this point and just starts screaming, if you bring up your daughter to me one more time about sex, give me a break. They've probably been sucking dick since 14, which is a comment you brought up, Katie. And Ramona says, it doesn't matter. I don't want to hear about it. And Sonia goes, of course, Leah is acting out. She likes saying a rise at Ramona. Leah calls everyone a hoe and leaves. Which, what movie is it when they like get fired from their job or like they're quitting? And he's like, fuck you, you're cool, fuck you, I'm out.
It's Half-Baked is that movie,
And that's exactly what it reminded me of. Of like, she calls all of them except Ebony a hoe.
Yeah.
But I do feel like Leah said that like in an empowering way. Right?
Yeah, like you sleep with men. We like you all sleep with men. Let's stop acting like we are the Virgin Mary here.
Right.
Yes.
And that is like we cut to a commercial at this. So before we get into the next part of it, the whole education part, we definitely saw Ebony be like, oh, ho, 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 we're not calling this into question. What was your initial reaction?
like I think I was just like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like yeah, like education has nothing to do with class. Like being raised Catholic has nothing to do with that as well. Like the same way that the previous they talk about being a good mother. Like there's so many like layers to that thing over there. And what you're not gonna do is try to define some people's character either based on education or like other stuff, like it just that was not part of it, so I appreciate Ebony said that, like, yeah, like make those disassociations, like cut the bullshit out of it. So I really like that.
And I think it's just really hypocritical of Luann, especially because over the years or over the quarantine where we've watched her throughout these seasons, is that she started off writing a book about class and whatever. And then we've seen her drunk ass fall in a bush. We've seen her get arrested. We've seen all of this shit happen. And for her to even look at anybody as if they are less than because of some words that they use or some topics that they talk about. Every one of these women shits themselves on television. So who are you to say? I mean, season after season, we're talking about, I shit my pants, I shit on the floor, I'm in the bathroom with diarrhea. It happened 1 episode ago, where we're talking about all these women are constantly shitting all over themselves. So it's like, and literally, it's not even like a figurative statement, literally shitting on themselves. Yep. So for some reason, this is where we're drawing the line. That's what I don't understand. It's like you guys are all a mess. Sonia in herself is just a whole ass mess. So I don't know why this all of a sudden talking about using the word dick and whatever other words that they're using is such a trigger for them to then say, well, it has to do with class and education. None of these women are a picture of class or education. None of them. Except for Ebony, because she's been nothing but classy, and she clearly is more educated than everybody there.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute preach, Katie. Like you said, everything. And it's so annoying to see this because this show was built on women screaming at each other, being crazy, pulling each other's hair, like throwing drinks on each other's face. This show is popular because of that. You cannot just forget the history of the show and say like, now we're just, like classy ladies who are this youngster that is, like coming here saying dick and cursing, whatever, like really, really, so it just seems so delusional. Like how can't they see that? Like, it's crazy. It makes me crazy.
This felt like a different version of the fight when they were arguing about using the F word in front of their kids. It was Dorinda.
Heather.
Was it Heather? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of similarities where I feel like they use class and elegance as like their go-to when someone does something that they don't like. Well, like, oh, you're not classy, you're not elegant. Where did that go? And I feel like it's like a really easy crutch for this group, especially to go back to, which seems kind of cheap to me because I think that you can like dicks and still be classy and elegant.
Oh,
and
talk about it.
Sure.
And talk about it. Like, I think it's just like they're easy out for some of these things. Afterwards, after we get back from the commercial, we get Heather saying like no one's listening to each other, which is spot fucking on. That Luann said, well, I just tried to explain it. I thought it was pretty clear for an uneducated person. And Ebony said, I didn't say that. I didn't say I'm the smartest. I just said I'm the most educated. And Sonia agreed with that. Like, Ebony is the most educated. Luann, well, you don't know how to speak 3 languages. And then, like, they cut to a confessional of Luann saying, like, someone who I think is well-educated, is well-rounded, and speaks many languages, well-traveled, that type of thing. And Ebony goes, I don't like how you said that people who don't meet your social standards aren't educated, which I think was, like, that's the key of all of this here. And we've touched on this already. Lou said, that's not what I said. You've got all wrong. You think you're the smartest girl in the room. Don't come into my house and tell me I don't have an education. Ebony said, I didn't say that. I respect that you're a trained nurse. And here's where we get into some microaggressions where Luann goes, you're screaming. Ramona goes, you're too loud. Bring it down. And Ebony goes, your white fragility is killing me right now. And Luann goes, don't go after race. Ebony goes, white fragility, and she tries to explain it, and they all just cut her off, like screaming louder than her. And this is when Ramona just gets up and screams, I don't like talking about dicks and cunts, which go off, Ramona. So Luann again to Ebony, why are you getting so angry and yelling? And Ebony's like, oh, now I'm the angry black woman. Luann goes, you said that, not me. You're an angry woman right now. It has nothing to do with your color. Ebony said, yes, it does. Leah left and no one called her angry. I have a visceral response and I get called angry. Tell me it's not about race. Sonia, it's crazy when Sonia is the voice of reasoning, goes, she doesn't seem angry to me. She just seems to be using her words. And where does this come in? Ramona asked Luann's, sorry, I read my own notes wrong. So Ramona asked Luann's daughter about Leah's language. Like, would you say all this stuff to like get justification? Like, now this is all set. And Ebony goes, if you don't want me here because I am not free to express things, I'll leave your property because I respect you. And Luann says, I think you should go because that's what you just said was very offensive to us. And Sonia goes, not to me.
Yeah.
So Ebony says, you're not going to please my feelings. You tried to shame any sexually free woman and you tried to use education to do it. It's trash. And that's where we're at the end of the episode. So I felt like going through all of that was probably to give the whole picture and we can go back and talk about it. How are you guys feeling during this? Like, what was your reaction and message you want to get out about it?
It was like bittersweet for me in a sense that like it was good to see like Ebony standing up for herself and just like calling people out and putting names to it. You know, like the comment about Leah being screaming about it, calling her angry, and Ebony just having an opinion in a very super like chill tone and being called aggressive. You know, like I really happy that she did that, but it's sad to see her going through that, you know, above all means. Like, you don't want that, you know, we don't want that for anyone. And the weight that this has on her, because she probably has experienced, probably no, she certainly experienced that many times on her life. And now she's here on cameras, you know, for everybody else, you know, like going on her Instagram or on, you know, on television and say like, you are so angry, you are using the race card, you are doing this, you know. So it was nice in a point of view that like, yes, Ebony, you were so right, but it was so sad to see her having to go through that probably like for the 1,000th time in her life, you know. But it happened.
Yeah, I was feeling pretty gross watching it, and I've always been a Luann supporter. She's always been my favorite in New York. No longer after this. I can't defend or stand by anything that she said or the way that she acted or the tone that she was using. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen her snap that way and get so angry. She was angry. And it felt unfounded to be so angry to me. And obviously I'm a white person and I'm speaking from a place of privilege, and I don't know, and I haven't walked in Ebony's shoes or anyone who looks like Ebony's shoes. I've experienced a lot of different things in life than any person of color or any Black woman has experienced. But we read and we learn and we listen to people, and this is just after the year and plus and beyond that we've had. It's just really sad that this is a conversation that we're having and that Luann didn't realize. I think before we even got to like the "you're so angry," it almost felt like Luann was offended that a Black woman was saying that she was more educated than her. That to me felt like where the microaggression started before even the angry and you're yelling. It felt like the whole conversation. I don't think if Leah said that to her, I don't think if Sonia said it to her, I don't think if Ramona said it to her, she would have had the same reaction. And it felt like she couldn't take being told by a Black woman that she had a lower education than her, or that she was less than in any way to a woman of color. And that's what really felt like it came from me. And kind of like I said earlier, we've seen Luann act like complete trash on the show. Luann went to jail. Luann is the one that beat up a police officer. Like, who are you
Luann
to say?
wore blackface to
Luann
Halloween.
blackface. Luann wore blackface. I mean, this is it's just disappointing, and the way that she acted, and I'm so happy that Ebony said, Leah stormed out of here and you didn't call her angry. And I just hope that moving forward, they listen and they understand what they did and what they said that was wrong, both Ramona and Luann, specifically Luann. I don't have any hope that it's going to go anywhere productive. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be an agree to disagree situation, and I don't think that they're open to listening to why what they were saying was wrong.
I feel like it's gonna come down to like a reunion situation to solve this issue, because I have been on Luann's Instagram every day waiting for like, the notes apology or even acknowledge the subject,
And nothing.
like nothing, because like what happened with Sutton and Crystal, Sutton the same day she said some things, Crystal, like replied to it like, hey, like thank you for acknowledging that time you were wrong, that we can always move forward from it. That's the least you can do. That's the least. And I'm on Luann's Instagram every day, like refreshing, waiting for this, to see what she has to do. Not that I expect a lot from her, but so far she's pretending that everything's fine, while we have Ebony taking herself off social media because she probably knew before the episode was going to air that she was going to get a lot of hate in her comments and all the other blogs. So, very disappointing coming from Luann. I don't know, like some things, like in my opinion, like are unforgivable. Like the blackface should have been that, like we have, like, for example, like, in Atlanta when Portia like slapped Kenya during the reunion, we got her demoted. Like when Luann was arrested, she was demoted to a friend off in the show as well. I do hope this situation brings some kind of this resolution to Luann, if she doesn't acknowledge that in the way like, hey, no, like you are on timeout now, because I do feel like it was very, very, like this shouldn't be happening in 2021. Shouldn't.
Yep.
I think I'm hoping that like seeing the episode is maybe like an eye opener. I'm not going to bet any money on it because I would like to keep my money, but that's kind of like my last hope for it, is seeing the episode and maybe whatever happens in the next one. But I do genuinely think that maybe on one of these trips that Bravo throws in like a 5-hour mandatory diversity training for these women or something, like get them to some fancy ass Airbnb and then sit them down and be like, we need to talk about some stuff, because I don't see people like Luann going out of their way to learn. And that it's so unfortunate that Ebony has to experience this, because she's dealing with someone who is, despite everything that's happened within the last year and a half that have come up within race relations in our society, that it's still like so ignorant to not just listen and to like listen and learn from someone who's telling you like, I'm experiencing this. Like I have experienced this. I'm a Black woman. This is my story. Listen to me. I'm not some fictional writer. This is my actual life. Like to then just tell someone, no, I don't respect what you're saying. I don't believe what you're saying. And she didn't say things as bluntly as that, but it's essentially what she's saying, that I don't know, like where I just wonder like where does Bravo step or not step in? And because when I recently watched Luann show up to a Halloween party in blackface, like there were producers who allowed this to happen. There's Bravo staff that's allowed this to happen. And so like even after that, what are we doing to educate? Like the fact that they allowed it to happen probably shows enough about what page Bravo is on, but I don't know. I can't think we can like preaching diversity and like throwing in. It seems like a lot of like tokenism in a way with how they're doing this. That like, well, we have the Black person. Okay, well, you're not doing enough because you're not protecting the Black person. You are not making this person be in a safe space. They're up against the Luanns of the world. And so I believe that this was the part of my viewing experience today where I was like sitting with my back up against my bed, like with the pillow, and I just like shrunk down, like, this is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Like, I said it out loud to my dog. So it just, this episode, and to watch like the Beverly Hills one right after, back to back, I'm just like, oh my God, what year is it? It feels like maybe 1950 after all this. It sucked.
Yeah. And it feels very similar. I don't know. I know this is veering not necessarily off track, but if you guys follow The Bachelor, this very similar situations have happened with The Bachelor recently, where Chris Harrison had to step down. He got into a situation with the first Black Bachelorette, Rachel Lindsay, the first Black lead in the show's history, and he spoke over her and was just terrible with microaggressions and making excuses for racist behavior that took place by one of the contestants. And the internet came for Rachel, and she sat back and she didn't say a thing in response to him at the time. She did respond afterwards. And she is unfortunately labeled as an angry Black woman all the time. We've seen it. And unfortunately it happened with the season where we had the first Black male lead. And it's really sad. And it feels like they feel like they're fixing something by putting one Black person on the show, and this situation is fixed. But it's been very publicly acknowledged that The Bachelor has had diversity training, has had all these things. And when does it become like that's not enough? You need to have people in positions like producers, like executives, like Andy Cohen, people in similar positions to Andy Cohen, of color, women, who can make sure that things like this don't take place and that they're making a safe space for the people on their show. And that's not happening right now. These cast members are carrying these issues on their backs. And I know you guys probably don't watch Dallas. I don't really watch Dallas either, but I've kept up with what took place. Tiffany Moon is a doctor. She's one of the top anesthesiologists in the entire country. She's like a prodigy, and she's the first Asian housewife, I don't know ever, but in Dallas for sure. And she was treated like complete shit over her culture, and especially when all of these anti-Asian hate crimes are taking place. Bravo really didn't do right by her. They talked about it at the reunion. Andy Cohen didn't step in. It's just like, when are we gonna say this is not enough and put people in the positions to make sure that things like this aren't taking place? When are we going to have the tough conversations and not just allow these women to handle it one-on-one? Like, it's not protecting your cast. It's not protecting your viewers that are watching this, that could be triggering. Like, it's disappointing.
You know what made me crazy? Like, I don't think her behavior was right as well, but Kenya Moore on this season of Atlanta, she dressed up as a Native American. She put I don't know the name that in English. What's the name of
the headdress?
She put that, for a Halloween thing, and rightfully, a lot of people say they were offended by that, and immediately Bravo takes the episode out of there, edit all Kenya's dress in the Halloween costume part, makes Kenya do an apology, make a big deal out of it in the reunion, like it makes a huge circle of that. Sure, that's right, you were offending Native Americans, do that, but where was this behavior when like the white women, like Luann and like probably the women that were being aggressive towards Tiffany in Dallas are doing like this kind of stuff? Like, where are the production like doing stuff like that? Because I watched this episode of Luann in blackface like a couple, like months ago. It's still right there, Probably if I look for it right now on Bravo.
I literally watched it within the last 3 to 4 weeks.
Right, so it's right over there, like, so there is a different of treatment, even when it comes to like
you want to know why? Is because there's still a giant population in this country who think the same way that these people on our TVs are thinking, and so they're still catering to the viewers who think like that. They're trying to make the best of both worlds, and it's not making the cut. You still have your conservative white women who are watching this and thinking, there's nothing wrong with what Luann's saying. Why, what's the big deal here? You know what I mean? And like Bravo is their bottom line is their bottom line. Like, that's where, and it sucks that it's that way, but that has to be it. Otherwise, like, these fixes get made seasons ago, straight up. Like they're still trying to cater to the white conservative woman who enjoys watching this show.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying to the viewers and to their castmates and to everybody that the conservative white women audience is more important to us than our audience of color, our Black audience. This is why we keep the Black women separate. We put them in Atlanta, we put them in Potomac. You watch them. And to be fair, Atlanta, I think for a long time, I don't know if they still are, were the highest rated housewives by far. And we'll keep the New York and Beverly Hills separate. So the Black people have their Black show and the white people have their white show and everybody's happy. But that's not the way the world works. And that's not the way that we should be looking at it. And it doesn't represent the cities that they're in. And it's just a mess. And it's like the fact that this has gone on for so long on Bravo specifically is wild. For something like The Bachelor, I'm not making excuses. The Bachelor is a shitty franchise, and that's not surprising. But Bravo, who you think would be more inclusive, they're just as bad. They're still a huge corporation. They're owned by NBC. It's the same. It's all the same.
Yeah, like when you think about like Atlanta, for example, like that they let Nene Leakes go because she was trying to negotiate her contract, you know, and in the same franchise we have Kim Zolciak that is trash. Like she is like literally trash. And she got her show, like her own spin-off that was on air for like 8 years, you know? It just got canceled. And like
who is watching that?
Nobody's watching that. Like literally nobody's watching that show, you know? And then like you just let Nene Leakes go, like, you know, like it shows like who is valuable and who is not for that company. And that's pretty shitty about it.
Yep.
The good news is we still have one more episode to talk about. So what's funny was Leo messaged me and he was like, hey, I went back and listened to our first one. I thought we did a lot of good things. We just need to move faster. And here we are an hour and 55 minutes in. But to be fair, first of all, like these are some heavy topics. And I think all three of us are passionate about them. Because I think one of the more difficult things, being a fan of the show is how do you be a fan of the show while also like still continuing to watch and like how like where do you draw the line in the sand, what has to happen, and like being able to talk it out. I don't think as many people have the opportunity to do that, so I will gladly talk about this for however long because I think it's important that I think there's other people who feel the same way. And but yeah, it's definitely like that was a heavy episode, and the good news is Beverly Hills was just as heavy, so let's keep it moving. So we jump straight into the Beverly Hills episode with Sutton saying yet again, I don't see color, I don't see race. The word racist is like a virus, it's worse than COVID. And Kyle agrees with this sentiment and says, I stayed up thinking about my conversation with Garcelle. And Sutton said, you were approaching her as a person, not as a race. Yes, I'm the girl that doesn't see color. Is that so bad? Why? Give me a break. Let's not do it. To which Crystal says, it's more than just hair color and eye color. Like, do you want to know about my ancestry? Like, that's what this comes down to. Do you want to know my background? And Kyle goes, what I think she means is she sees us all equally. And Crystal says that's not the same thing. I think that the expression I don't see color is outdated, and this generation was taught to be colorblind. And you see that was in her confessional, and Kyle goes, give me a penny for your thoughts, because Crystal is just kind of staying there listening to Sutton and Kyle go back and forth about how what Sutton is saying is okay and Kyle justifying it. And Crystal just goes, I think we can agree to disagree. And Sutton goes, what are we disagreeing on? And Kyle goes, you two aren't seeing eye to eye, even though you both have good intentions. Whew. So, first and foremost, so Katie, I think we're around the same age. Leandra, how old are you?
I am 29.
It looked like you had to think about that for a second.
I did, because I always see myself like a little bit younger sometimes, and then I was like, oh no, I am actually 29.
No, I understand. Were you guys ever, like, in your experiences in learning about diversity, ever taught, like, I don't see color? Because I was taught that that's, like, an okay thing to say, like, more back in the day. I think, like, when I hit college was the first time someone said, like, actually you should see color? Like, were you guys taught this as like it's an okay thing to think and like a way to approach this ever, or was that just me?
Not with those specifically words, but like in Brazil, there is this thing about like we are all the same, we are all equal, like because and I do feel like it comes from like a religious thing, like you know, like we are all the same in the eyes of God, and I feel like that's an excuse, another excuse from probably the church to like perpetuate racism systematically because like everybody's the same. I'm not better than anyone, but like are we the same? Are we treated the same? Are we seen the same? So yeah, it took me like a long time like seeing that way. Like for example, like I'm not embarrassed to say that, but like when I was like going to university in Brazil is a very different system, and I had access to private schools and everything. And then like before that, on the year that I was going to apply for university, it was the first year that 50% of the spots would have to go for people from public schools, and from that 50 another 50 would be for people of color, like like black, indigenous, like whatever diversity we have in Brazil. And me as being like a private school guy, I didn't even think about it, and I was like, oh, that's so unfair. I studied all my life, this is so unfair. Why that? But when I went to university, that opened my mind like crazy. And that's when I was start like we have to see the difference. I go to university by car. We have this guy here that lives in a different city, has to wake up 5 in the morning, even though he has only class at 11 a.m. to get there because there's no bus that would take him, and he would be home like at 9 p.m. every day. And then me, like it really took me a while to realize that we have to realize that everybody's different. Nobody's the same. So I think I would start the same thing, Carrie, but like with different words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I was ever taught. I grew up in a very white area, and I was very lucky that my dad he grew up in the inner city and he had a lot of experiences in life. So I was very lucky to be brought up as very progressive and open-minded. So, but it took me reading things on the internet, being lucky enough to have jobs where I worked with diverse people and be around other people to hear their experiences. And I was open and willing to hear about it. I don't know if I was ever like taught yes or no about like, I don't see color, or I never really faced it. I feel like it just feels to me very like all lives matter is we don't see color. It's all the same type of rhetoric. But I think I was very lucky too, a sense of like landing on the right spots in the internet when I was in high school and after high school and meeting people on the internet and talking to people. Not that I'm like, the mayor of the internet or anything, but like, just like making sure that I'm like
secretary of press maybe or something. Not full-blown mayor.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're definitely on a leadership board somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere of the internet, me and Al Gore. But it's like that joke dates me, by the way. That aged me.
It dates me because I'm laughing a lot at it.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of people who grow up in very like white neighborhoods, like some of the Real Housewives, I'm sure, never thought to open their mind or hear about other people's experiences. And I think it just depends on who you're surrounded by and if that's something that's encouraged or not. And luckily for me, it was. And even though I grew up in a white neighborhood, we're not a rich family. I don't come from money. I don't come from any of that kind of stuff. My parents were divorced. Like it's not like I was sitting on top of a hill looking down on my palace of money at the peon. That wasn't what it was at all. It's just, and I grew up on Long Island, New York, and Long Island is very segregated still to this day. The neighborhoods are very segregated. So it's just, that is what it was, unfortunately. And so it just sucked.
We talked about this last week was like, I don't think Kyle is racist. I think Kyle has not had the exposure to have the understanding of someone like Garcelle who's had these experiences, and she's just thought like, oh, we all came from similar situations, like we all get treated the same, like our skin color is not a big deal. And like I know that I was taught up, it was basically the same thing, that exposure at college to like, oh shit, there are different people than like the ones that I went to high school with. Like similar thing, that I think like Sutton's kind of coming from a same place, but just was like more ignorant about it and how she said it, versus like Kyle sat and listened and did what I think you're supposed to, where Sutton kind of argued back and was like, no, like just because I'm from the South doesn't mean I'm racist, and like I don't see color, we're all equal. Like I think Sutton genuinely meant well, but just does not have the understanding of different like people different from her, that to know that what you're saying is actually ignoring the diversity that's in front of you. But it doesn't make it like any easier to watch this conversation, because that light bulb never went off, and she's too smart of a woman for that light bulb to not go off. Like I commend Kyle for when she was talking to Garcelle to sit and listen. Sutton didn't. Sutton argued back with Crystal, and like the number one thing you have to do is just sit and listen and take it in, reflect, and then ask questions that are meaningful, and not to challenge someone on their experiences because they're different than you.
I think as a white woman, and knowing other white women and seeing the narrative around white women, which is not an incorrect narrative, it is a correct narrative about white women, is that it's a lot of pride for some reason. I don't know where it comes from, to have to prove something to somebody that like, I'm not racist because this, I'm not racist because this. And I don't know if that's what's discussed in the book White Fragility. I haven't read it, but it feels to me like similar to what Ebony was saying. That's exactly what Sutton was doing, right? Is like having to prove something and just say, well, I faced experiences too because I'm Southern and people call me racist. That's not the same thing. And like, it's not even in the same realm of things. Like just because people think you might be racist because you're from the South, maybe that sucks and that's a stereotype, but it's not a racial stereotype, and it's not systemically holding you down in life, and you don't have to work 5 times harder than someone else who doesn't look like you to get somewhere in life. You're very privileged. You're coming from a place of privilege. And for some reason, white women are not open to hearing that. White men are not either, but for some reason it comes a lot out of white women who like feel the need to fight back on these conversations instead of just taking a second, sitting back and listening and saying, okay, you're right. I didn't think about it from that way. And I'm happy that Kyle did that. And it's sad that like, it's the least that we're asking for is for you to just stop talking and listen. We're just asking you to stop talking and listen. That's it.
And one thing.
Go ahead, Leandro.
Just like one thing about Kyle that I don't think I liked a lot, because it felt like at the moment with Garcelle, like she listened and everything, but it felt like when Sutton was talking, she was like, see, it took like a white person to talk, that Kyle immediately was like, yeah, you get me, I didn't like that. But also like with but just to complement what Katie said, is like, for example, like you are not excluded from being racist or homophobic or sexist because you have like, perfect behavior in the past. You can have racist actions without even realizing about that. And like in Portuguese, this happens a lot. There's some words that are like very, very offensive from the time from slavery. And these days, it doesn't make sense to say these words, And then like some people say, and you just be like, hey, that was offensive, People say, oh, today everybody, doesn't care anymore. But you can just say, oh, wow, I never thought about this way. Thanks for teaching me something different. And that's what Sutton had to do at that moment. I will say that I feel like Sutton, she clearly, like in doing that, she was a mess through the entire episode. She has like low self-esteem and whatever she is. And she thinks like people are ganging up on her. I think that's how I see that. And I do feel like with that moment, I think Sutton was so afraid to be canceled, I feel like it was like, no, I'm not gonna be canceled, please don't cancel me, I'm not racist, she started like saying, instead of just like, oh my God, I should listen. I don't think Sutton is racist. I really don't think. She did had a racist moment, that was very unfortunate. And she seemed now, I was seeing on Instagram, that she has learned from it. Her and Crystal have talked about it. But she was just too afraid of like being canceled, I think. And she just went like all over the place. So
I agree. And I feel like what you're saying is spot on. And I think, I don't know where I read this, if it was on Reddit or Twitter or wherever it was, but somebody made a statement that Sutton saw what happened to Denise last season. She probably has watched the show in the past and sees how these women pounce on any little thing to gang up. And then the whole season's narrative is based around one thing. That's what Beverly Hills does. And somebody said she probably thought that was what was going to happen to her, and she didn't handle the situation well. Not to make an excuse for her, because she was wrong, but I can understand if that's where she was coming from. Where Luann, in comparison, that was coming from a place of, it felt like general like disdain for Ebony in that moment, or that felt real. Sutton felt ignorant. Luann felt like it was coming from a place where she really meant that, and she could not see herself as less than a person of color. Whereas Sutton, it felt like it was just coming from a place of ignorance, and she just wanted to prove, no, I'm not racist. I don't see color. And she didn't realize why saying that is racist in itself, or ignorant in itself. I don't know if that's necessarily, I mean, who am I to say? But it felt like that's just a statement of privilege.
Yeah. The thing that like crushed me during this was when Kyle goes, Penny, for your thoughts, and Crystal, you can tell she has like 5-6 different things she wants to say, and instead just swallows it and goes, I guess we agree to disagree. Because it's like she put herself out there to be heard and to like hopefully inform these people that are supposed to be her friends, and instead she wasn't heard, and she just has to deal. She feels like she just has to deal with that. She shouldn't have to. Yeah. That's like to feel like she just had to give up. Watching that, I was just like, oh, that sucks. But I also understand where she just doesn't want to carry on that conversation, because Sutton wasn't taking the perspective of, let me listen to you and learn. It was, I need to continue to defend myself until you believe that I'm not a racist because I'm saying this. And it's kind of like when you joke, like the nice guy doesn't need to say that he's nice. Usually if a guy's saying like, I'm the nice guy, is probably creepy as fuck. It's like, it's that same type of thing. Like, I'm not this, I'm a good person. I think we're equal and all this. It's like, your words only have so much meaning. Your actions need to show it. And currently your actions aren't, because you're not listening to me, a person of color, not me, obviously, but Crystal, like, not respecting that I'm trying to tell you these things and you just aren't having it. So with that moment, just like, I like felt it on my chest in a way. It's just like oh no, like I want you to fight back, but I also know that you shouldn't have to fight back, and I can understand why you don't want to fight. You're tired. You're tired. You have every right of being tired of this. Like, I felt genuinely bad for her in that moment when she decided to just not say anything.
And it's 2 against 1 in that moment, with Kyle defending what Sutton was saying and saying, no, she's just saying that she sees you equal. And to Crystal's point, it's not the same thing. That's not the same thing. And you can't reason with somebody who's acting belligerent like Sutton was. And Sutton was belligerent in that moment. So it's not the time to have the conversation.
Yeah. And like, I always watch like interviews and stuff like that with the cast, and Crystal, like, she said she was like a big fan of the show before joining in, and like she was like, I felt that I had cracked the code, that I was going to get there, and I knew exactly how to behave, like I knew exactly how my narrative was going to be. And I feel like when she says that, it kind of, like when I see this moment of her, and then she was just like, oh, I'm just going to go to bed. I felt like she was just like, you know what? Maybe it wasn't like how I was expecting. Maybe I really underestimate this cast, that this wouldn't be an issue about like racial problems and stuff. And now here I am having to do that. So that's what I got from it when she talks about how the show was completely different when she was there than she was a fan, right? So it was just unfortunate for her.
She didn't have to see anyone of color except for Garcelle interact with these women prior to her joining. And even still, last year there wasn't really, if I remember correctly, which I watched all of Beverly Hills a couple months ago, that like this wasn't as much of a prevalent topic or issue in Garcelle's first season. So like you didn't really have that like, oh, I might be walking into this, like this is new and you can't really prepare for it if you haven't seen it before.
Yeah, I'm not sure it came up at all. If it did, very briefly, but I don't think that it did.
I think if anything, it did in like a positive way of like, it didn't have these like undertones to it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about something funny because Leandro last week was like, Kathy Hilton's fucking hilarious. And I'm like,
she's my queen.
I love Kathy Hilton. See, that's why, like, Carrie, I'm just like, girl.
Okay, so I want to apologize.
Are you not a fan?
I just didn't see her purpose last week. You know, or the last couple weeks, I'm like, what is she doing? Because there's also, like, there's so many, I thought, more meaningful, like, entertaining personalities, but now I get her. It took me.
We don't need those meaningful personalities. We need Kathy goddamn Hilton.
Yes. So I'm here to admit I was wrong. I'm now on the I get it train. This episode really opened my eyes. So Leandro, please accept my apologies for being wrong. I support you entirely. Dude, this bitch showing up at 12:30 in the morning with chips and a Red Bull to Kyle's room.
And the fact she's like the Mr. Magoo of the Housewives. She can't see things, and she's just like, "Oh, I thought this was a soft drink." And she's like drinking her Red Bull at 3 a.m. Like, girl.
That was truly eating chips in bed, reading her iPad, and then opening up a bunch of newspapers, sitting in bed. That was like, it was pure comedic gold. And trying to go into Sutton's room, and Sutton was like, "I'm naked." It was just so it was just so good. It was so good.
We needed that after the beginning of this episode, like to bring some light levity to this, like that. I was cracking up. So
I really hope they don't give her a diamond, because I feel like when you give like someone like a diamond, like you really go deep like into their life and stuff like that. So I really hope Kathy stays on the show, but just as a friend of someone that shows up occasionally for a good time. Like, I don't see her inserting herself in the drama, to be honest, which I love that. You know, I don't see her fighting, I don't see her screaming, you know, but I really want her to continue to be just this, you know, cuckoo crazy person.
Did you see her Instagram live with Kyle, and they were talking about the show?
Yes.
And she said, "Well, Kyle, where can we watch it? People are asking me." And Kyle's like, "What do you mean? Where?" She said, "What channel?" And she's like, "What do you mean what channel? It's on Bravo."
It's on Bravo.
She had no idea that the show was even on Bravo. I mean, she's just giving me everything that I need.
Yeah. I wonder like if she's like doing like what Paris did, you know, but I don't think she is, because I remember a moment that she was on the show in a party and Adrienne Maloof was there and she was doing like a magic trick or whatever, and she like very genuinely comes to Adrienne Maloof and she says like, "Oh, so you're doing magic now? Like, is that what you do? Like you're a magician right now?" And people are like, "No, this is just for like her birthday party. It was just like a trick, like one time only." Like, she's adorable. I really like her.
Yes.
I needed that after watching New York and then Beverly Hills literally back to back, where it was just like, oh, I can breathe a little. Thank you. So thank you, Kathy Hilton. So that morning, or that was happening the next morning, where Kyle was kind of like rehashing what happened the night before her and Kathy's little adventure. The election gets brought up, where like, who you think's going to win? Erica just goes, Biden and Harris are going to win, and that's that. So I would love to have like seen if there was any more like political divides then. But I feel like sometimes when Erica says something, especially as strongly as she says something, like people, those women specifically are like, if they don't agree with her, they don't battle back, because it's like Erica said it. And if she said it, like that means I have to fight Erica. And when Erica goes for it, she will cut you. So
I do feel like the Beverly Hill ladies are democratic. Like I do feel that. So I don't think you would have like any big issues. I can see Dorit being like Republican, like because she wants to, I don't know, but she I don't think she was. I think
fiscally Republican, or fiscally conservative. Those motherfuckers annoy me.
Yeah. But like, I don't think she is, because I think I remember like when the elections were happening, like I was checking like who was saying stuff about it, and I think all of the Beverly Hills cast did. So that was good.
I think Beverly Hills, along with Atlanta, at least some of the women in Atlanta and Potomac, are the most progressive women.
Yeah.
Even New York we know is not.
Yeah.
Ramona
that reunion when Andy was like, we had 3 people not answer, so it was like 3 yeses, 3 no's, and Bethany was like, well, the 3 no's or the 3 no answers are definitely Republican votes for Trump.
Yeah. I think Luann, Sonia, and Ramona are like Republican, right? Like
Well, Ramona is very much so.
Yeah.
I think Luann. I don't even know if Luann votes, honestly. She probably seems like, who knows?
She only votes for counts. She doesn't vote for presidents.
I just thought that conversation was, I'm surprised that they included it almost. I was like, this is interesting.
I wonder if it's because of like what was also going on at the same time. Well, like no one fought back saying, oh, I'm voting for Trump or whatever. So like, well, if you're voting for Biden, you can't be racist. Like,
true.
You know what I mean?
Also
like,
true.
I wonder if that's maybe the reason for including that little part is to just connect those dots. But I could be reading too much into it.
That could be true. And I also never need anybody to tell me that they know Donald Trump personally and that he never acted like that to me. No one cares. Stop. He incited a riot. He's trying to take the country back. Like, it's just like, we don't need to care what Lisa Rinna had her experience. I know this is before the insurrection and whatever, but still, I mean, at this point, we already know what type of person this man is and the trauma he's brought to the world and this country. Like, we don't need Lisa Rinna's anecdote about how he fired her twice on The Apprentice. Like, shut up, Lisa Rinna.
Yeah, but I feel like I interpreted that as a way of like Lisa Rinna trying to be the star of any situation.
Yes.
So she was like, okay, this is my time to shine. Let me talk about the time that I met Donald Trump,
Yes.
Like, he fired me 2 times. Like, hey, girl.
Good for you.
Yeah, like I was actually surprised that made the cut. I was like, nobody wants to watch that. Like,
why are you talking about this man?
But it was good to see, like, they talking about like the elections, because sometimes politics is out of topic, and I like that, the little moment of like, okay, you have to say something.
Yeah.
And I also think it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? You're like obligated when we know that like this was filmed close to the election, that like everyone is talking about it. It doesn't matter who you are. So like bringing it up at least once to show that like they're not so removed from real life, that, like they do care a bit about it. Like, I appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
We were able to see some definite tension between Sutton and Crystal. More on Sutton's end, I felt like you could just see it in her face and her body language. Which lends itself to the next part where Sutton goes to talk to Crystal. Nitro, I know you are sick of the Real Housewives. You're going to have to calm down. I think he just wants to go outside. But so Sutton goes to talk to Crystal, and she said, I don't want you to think that I'm not sensitive to another race or culture. And Crystal says, I do believe that you see everyone equally. And then Sutton has the audacity to say, what set me off is when you said, are you that girl that doesn't see color? That's insulting. To which, after we get back from the commercial, Crystal's like, well, when someone doesn't see color, it's confusing. I don't think of you as an Asian. You're just my friend. And Sutton just kind of doubles down and says, like, but saying you're that girl isn't very nice. It struck a nerve with me. And Crystal, again, is trying to, like, give Sutton that opportunity to learn, and goes, like, I get it, but I've been on the other side of the racism. And Sutton says, I didn't mean to offend you. Someone in New York City asked me if I was racist since I was from the South. And so, how much do we believe on that story? I was just like, who does that? Like, in an elevator randomly. Yeah. Hey, where are you from? Oh, yeah, I'm from the South. Oh, so are you a racist? Like, who does that? I don't think so.
I don't think that actually happened.
Yeah, I think Sutton probably went to the bell last night, like, how am I going to get myself out of it? And then created that little story, Yeah. I didn't buy that. And it's unfortunate that that's, like, the decision she came to, versus
having that moment of, okay, am I not approaching this from the right perspective? I wish like she had gone and talked to Garcelle. Her and Garcelle have a good relationship.
Yes.
Like that would have been
Right.
the right person, I think, to talk to about the situation before going to Crystal and then further discussing the situation, because Sutton didn't change any of her views there. If anything, she called Crystal out for shit.
Right.
It's like, oh, it made it. I just, again, this whole beginning part of this episode, besides Kathy Hilton in bed with a Red Bull, I struggled. I definitely struggled.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's much more we can say about it that we haven't already.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep it going. They go to wake Kathy up to go, and she won't wake up. Probably.
And it's like 11:30 a.m.
Well, I mean, she took a Red Bull at like 1:30, so she was probably up for a little bit.
She's a mood.
Yeah. What she says to Kathy, like, get out. That was it.
She goes, just leave me alone.
Yeah.
That was it. So we get to this, like, how would you describe it? They are cars that you need to pedal that are like almost shaped like 4-person go-karts. Like, is that a...
I don't know.
It was like a bike on a track, but like with 4 people. All I know about this is I was like, why am I watching this?
Yeah.
They could have cut it out and it would have changed nothing. Like,
Nothing.
what are we watching this for?
Yeah.
Especially when they didn't like go to dinner or anything after. Nothing happened. They were just...
The one thing that I took from all of this was they get 2 big-ass vans to transport 6 women to and
Yeah, they
from
could
this
have
event.
fit in one van.
Yeah, they could have. They could have. Especially when, like, Garcelle passes the fuck out across one of the back rows.
Unless it's like a COVID thing. It might be like a COVID restriction that they can't.
Yeah, but
like,
they
pack them all in.
are...
No, but they are living at the same house. I don't
Yeah.
know. But
Anyway,
one thing about that drive in the car, I love the Sutton and Crystal moment about the dad. I think that happened, you know, like about losing their father at such a young age. Like, that was a very nice moment, in my opinion. Like I said about, like, I was talking about New York and, like, genuine moments, like with, you know, that moment felt very genuine. It was very beautiful. I really like that.
I agree. And it kind of reminded me of what Ebony said last week in New York about Heather actually asking her questions and no one else does that. I like that it felt like Crystal and Sutton, regardless of what happened in the morning, were really trying to get to know each other a little bit in that moment. So I appreciated that. It
very
felt like
nice.
a genuine conversation.
Yeah. Like, because when we're watching television shows, like especially like reality TV shows, like I always look for those moments that like make us think that like these people are actually human beings.
Yes.
You know, they have like stories, they have like their baggages, you know, their life baggages. So for me, that was one of those moments. You know, like, you know what, you know, like, even though they have the differences, you know, like for the stupid reason, it was just so nice to see them both bonding of like a common ground that was the loss of their fathers, right? So that was a very nice moment in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you that, and it also showed that they're still like willing to try and create a bond despite the last 12 hours of conversation, which I think is cool too. We get home and we get Kathy. She had put eardrops in her eyes instead of eye drops. Now, in high school, my boyfriend, his dad did the same thing, and but actually put them in. He couldn't see for over a week. Like, he had to go to the hospital. Had a bunch. It was bad. So when I heard that, I was like, this bitch is still seeing. So I guess she must have like not gotten it into her eyes completely or whatever. But dude, like, this woman. Does it bewilder you sometimes that like she has a shitload of money and gets to live the fucking life, and I'm out here like teaching and tutoring to get by so me and my dog can eat 3 meals a day. Nitro eats too. Like, how the fuck do you have this much money? You put eardrops in your eyes. Like, what the fuck? I am educated. I have a terminal degree. Me and Ebony are educated. And Kathy Hilton's out here eating fucking Cheetos in bed and her Red Bull at middle of the night, not knowing it.
She's never had to think about a thing in her whole life.
Right, that's crazy.
Or at least in her whole adult life. I don't know, but I know the Hiltons or whatever they were before, the Richards, I guess, sisters.
Yeah.
Their Big Kathy was a whole trip of her own. So
Yeah.
I don't know. My favorite part of that. Well, first of all, I agree with you, Carrie, is that I was surprised that no one was taking it seriously because I was like, it feels like everybody's like, haha. And I was like, no, this could be like a problem.
It is a problem.
But
it is a problem.
You know what I think that like what it is? I feel like she has people that do that stuff for her.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I feel like she has people that like know like all the medication that she take, all the drops or whatever that she use, and just give it to her and then she does it, you know? Because I really got that feeling like when she was on this cast trip, that like by the way that they talk about like the husband and stuff like that, is that like this is something that she doesn't do. You know, she doesn't go out to be with the friends, you know, just hanging out. So I feel like that was one of those moments. Like
yes.
So after that, we get them out on the like balcony, and Garcelle says to Sutton. Sutton said something, I didn't catch it, but basically she was complaining about something. And Garcelle said, "You're like a princess with a pea under your mattress." Where Erica then chimes in and goes, "I'm very easygoing." And Garcelle says, "I can believe that because you don't give a fuck." And Erica said, "I'm content letting people be themselves. It's why I like Tom. He lets me be myself." Anything from this interaction, especially because we get a Tom mention a mere days before their inevitable divorce?
Well, this has been happening, and it's been happening a lot where they leave all of these conversations in about Tom, and like even just like little moments that would just be a normal average conversation, but obviously we're like, she's mentioning Tom. Oh, she's talking about Tom. And the editors are doing a masterful job of like making it seem like everything is great and she's talking about Tom as if nothing is happening. And then if you look up the timeline, there's a timeline out there of her getting served for another lawsuit that had to do with Tom at the end of October, and then this trip taking place like a week after.
28th. That was the 28th. Yeah. And she filed for divorce on the 3rd of November.
And then they find out right in the next episode. So it's like she knew that there were legal troubles going on. If you look at these timelines of all of these different legal paperwork that's been filed. So I love that they're including this and not brushing it under the rug, because clearly something is amiss with their timeline and their relationship and this divorce. And it feels like we're going to get it whether she wants us to get it or not.
Yeah, I saw like a comment on one of those Bravo fan pages that I follow on Twitter. It was just like what do we think? Do we think that Erica always talked about Tom and that they know in previous seasons and stuff like that, and they never showed to us? Or do we think like she's finally talking about this as a calculated move to know, like, I don't know, kind of like she knew what was going to happen. She's trying to see herself in a different light, trying to like throw Tom under the bus. I don't know. Like, it's just very weird that they show like this little moment to build up for what we already know that's going to happen, right? So I'm still not sure why the name dropping is happening.
Yeah, it feels like it would be a conversation that I mean, they've been married for however many years. It would be strange if she didn't mention him in casual conversation, but they never had a reason to show it to us before.
Right.
But who knows?
I have a more important question for you than all of this, though. Would you pay $2,000 for the slippers that Sutton was wearing?
No.
What the fuck was that? They were like $2,000. Oh my god! You could get like those big fuzzy bear type of, like, you know how they have slippers so it makes your feet look like dinosaur feet.
That's what they look like to me.
Yeah. Like the fact that you paid $2,000 for that. That's crazy.
That's like it's embarrassing to me for Sutton. Like, I'm embarrassed for Sutton that she put money into it.
It's just so fashionable, right? She has so like this high, couture, like old stuff. Like, girl,
it just shows how much money you have.
Right.
What is your net value that you can justify spending $2,000 on those? But
like, donate that money. Donate a portion of that money.
Right.
Do something better with it.
To me, my Venmo's KGD26. Like, I can do better things.
I will take a portion.
Yeah, I can do better things with that money than those stupid slippers. So then we get Garcelle saying that Kathy so we get the connection. They start talking about Paris Hilton, and Kyle says that like, oh yeah, I look a lot like Paris. Me, her, and one of Kyle's daughters have the bone structure, the same bone structure, and they show a picture of them, and so we like cut to Garcelle, which I think is hilarious, where she's like, okay, so Kathy thinks I look like Kyle, and they like flash back to Garcelle walking in, and Garcelle and Kathy being like, I thought you were Kyle. So Kathy thinks I look like Kyle, and Kyle looks like Paris, so I look like Paris Hilton. And I wish that in that moment they put a side by side of like Paris Hilton and Garcelle next to each other, just because that would have been so funny. I do like this next part, but I also think it's very plotted, maybe. But you guys can tell me what you know about it. So Garcelle said, like, Paris used to drive me nuts. I would see her at these parties, fashion shows, and she would always be on her phone. And Kyle and Kathy were like, that was her prop to be able to make herself feel safe, because she was so shy. She was so uncomfortable. She was able to just like on her phone, and that like gave her, it was like her safety blanket. And Garcelle's like, well, I'm glad I heard this, because otherwise I always would have thought that she was just like being rude. And Kyle made the comment like, well, lucky we're in a good place, because otherwise I would be annoyed she's judging another member of my family. So I can't remember if I brought this up with you, Leandro, but I had heard that Kathy was on this show this season. Part of it was to like kind of bring some good press back to her family, to Paris. Had either of you heard this?
I hadn't heard that, but I know that there is the Paris Hilton documentary,
right?
Which
I meant to watch, and I like completely.
I have watched it. Yeah,
you watched it?
I did, and it's kind of like she talking about like, you know, her experiences with the family and how they sent her to like I don't even know if it was a school. It was something that like, you know, would take your phone away. It would do bad things with you, like abuse you, like I don't know, like not in a sexually way. It was just like very heavy stuff, and Barry's kind of like created like this persona, you know, of the dumb blonde, like to kind of like co-op with that stuff. So, but she talks in the documentary a lot like how her parents didn't care, they didn't listen to her, you know, and they put her like they would call her in the middle of the night and take all of the things and move her, you know. So that's the bad press, I believe, on the Hilton that Paris brought.
That aligns with what I read, was like Kathy wants to use this as like an opportunity to like show that she cared and bring back like some good press to it. So maybe it's like that this is a good example of like, oh, she's defending her kid who did just create this documentary that kind of like defame them a bit or whatever. So that was I think that aligns with what I read, and I can't remember when I read it, so I didn't know like the exact facts about it. So I think that's kind of like purposefully put in there, because I heard that that's part of the reason Kathy agreed to be on the show, is if she was like able to use the platform to kind of like redeem her image in a way. So
makes sense.
I mean, also, don't we all just sit on our phones when we're out with people now anyway? So,
right.
All right. So then we get, have you noticed that they've now like 2 to 3 times showed us situations where it's Garcelle and Lisa first, and they like make it a point to show that they're just like tiptoeing around each other. Yeah. Like that was the only reason to show that next little segment, is to show that like, oh, here we are, just us two again. Like
when they were talking about the beam, and they were like, that's a beam, that really made me laugh. Made me laugh.
I feel like I'm the social media guy from this podcast. Like,
you
I
are
keep really following them and tracking. And Garcelle finally followed Lisa Rinna on Instagram. And like literally like a couple weeks ago, this was not happening. So I think something happened that they got on the same page finally. But she even like shared like a video from Lisa Rinna page or Lisa Rinna Instagram. So I feel like there was progress in there.
Well, it sounds like they're all now coming out and saying that Garcelle is very calculated, and it seems like now they're trying to gang up on Garcelle. Like Dorit said it. I think Lisa Rinna might have said something. It feels like Kenya is probably friends with Kyle now because of the All-Stars and is commenting against Garcelle. So it feels like there's some anti-Garcelle moment happening, and I'm not here for that.
I'm not here for that.
I'm not here for that.
Not at all. Like, but I do feel like Garcelle is gonna let those bitches have. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's not gonna she's not gonna be bullied out of the show like Denise was. Like LVP was. She's not gonna do that. She's gonna fight for her place on the show.
So after this, I mean, the reason they're all meeting together is because they're going to dinner. So they get to dinner and they're all like spread out due to COVID regulations. And there's some like small talk of like how they ate during COVID. We get that Lisa Rinna is launching a lip line, but that got put on hold due to COVID. Kathy's husband calls during dinner, but then we get down to where we start stirring things up a little bit again. So Sutton rehashes the previous night, and Sutton turns to Erica and says, "Don't you feel as a Southern woman you have to prove you're not racist?" And Erica was just like, "Nah, dog." Nope. Like, so it's gonna be a no for me. And so Dorit starts chiming in. She's like, "I've never heard that. Maybe you don't feel that way because you've been in a very multicultural world, Erica." And Sutton's like, "Well, I've also been in a very multicultural world."
She was not helping herself at all. Like, she was just a mess.
She was always on the defensive. And I mean, especially at this point, I don't know. I could understand her being defensive about this part. Yeah. But when it's on top of the previous 24 hours, then it's not a good look. But if she had taken a different approach to her conversations with Crystal, and then this comes out, I think she has the right to be like, okay, I've lived in these places as well, but not when you've spoken the way you have. Like,
right.
So we get Dorit saying, "I wasn't trying to offend you, Sutton," and then Dorit turns and basically tells everything to the other side of the table. Garcelle says, "Sutton's fragile right now. Leave her alone." So, I'm going to have to sneeze if one of you wants to talk about it. I can feel it in my nose. What did you think of that whole little conversation? Like, especially do you feel you have to prove that you're not racist?
I feel like actions speak more than words, and like if you have to keep telling this all the time, maybe you have some guilt on it, and even if you don't, it looks like you kind of do, so just let it go. Like, I feel like that's what we have been saying for this entire podcast, just listen to the person and just, you know what? I fuck it up that time. I will try to not fuck it up that anymore, because you cannot promise that you're not going to fuck it up again, and if I fuck it up again, I'm going to acknowledge that I fuck it up, and it was not like on purpose or anything. Just shut the fuck up. Like, seriously.
Right. I agree. I feel like it's very much like the more you make a big deal about it and the more you protest it, the louder your voice becomes. It's like you're not listening when you're speaking. So just stop. And like Leo, like you said, we're all going to fuck up. Nobody is perfect. Everybody is going to make a mistake or say something that they shouldn't say, and it's never, I mean, maybe sometimes it's intentional depending on who you are, but like if, sometimes you're going to say something that is wrong and you just have to listen and understand why you're saying something that's wrong and just try and be better moving forward. Don't just sit there and fight it and say, I spent my whole life trying to prove that I'm not racist. What are you trying to prove? Why do you have to work so hard to prove that you're not a racist? Just exist and show that you're not by your actions.
Well, yeah. Right. I definitely agree. And it's, I don't know. For me, the thing that's like kind of strange is how Sutton was trying to compare herself to Erica, where I get that they're both from the South, but otherwise I feel that they both have blonde hair. After that, where are the similarities in those two? You know what I mean? Like,
I see none.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like
like literally against the point that like Chris was trying to make. Like people are different; they have different stories. You know, I'm from Brazil. Brazil is huge. You know, I'm from the Northeast. People from the South have nothing to do, and I'm sure the same things in the
Yeah.
U.S. People
Yeah.
from New York are probably more open-minded than people from the center of the U.S. But it's still there's a lot of people in New York that is aligned with those. You know,
Yeah.
like it's just like you can make those two things. It doesn't make it right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like Sun was grabbing at straws with that, and just like she kind of put herself in a situation to be criticized. Like to expect Erica to jump on board with that, I thought was a kind of strange. But here we get into the prank. The
Bottoms
prank.
up.
So I actually was like, we'll go through it and then we'll go through it. Let me backtrack. We'll go through it. So Kathy then is like, we have to do bottoms up with a martini, and her and Dorit do it. So like you saw Erica's face being like, holy shit, she just did that. Like, wow.
This bitch is crazy.
Yeah. And then we get Lisa, Dorit, Erica, and Kathy doing a second one. And then we get let in on like it was a prank. It was just water. And they show like Kathy ordering the water martini. And I can't remember how she got Dorit in on it, but then Dorit sends Erica a text and like does a little like phone motion, like
which was so smooth, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's someone I'd want to play poker, like,
right? I know,
because I would win all of her money. So, I was so amused by all of that. What did you guys think of this whole thing? Were you shocked that it was a prank?
I was surprised.
Me,
yeah,
I was too.
I saw a lot of people like complaining that Dorit kind of ruined the joke, the prank. I don't know how I feel about that. I thought it was funny. Like everybody just, like playing with each other.
Yeah.
We don't see a lot of that in Beverly Hills, I think, And like I said, like I really appreciate Kathy's presence on the show, Like it brings like the lightness, like just even though everybody has their issues among each other, they were just all like laughing and playing, pranks. So I love that moment. It made me laugh really, really, really loud.
Yeah. Especially when we found out it was a prank. I was like, oh my God, that was solid. Good job. I should have known something was up when like Dorit did a second one, because like I feel like she would die, but whatever.
Yeah.
So then they're on the way home, and Sutton is like, I know there was a joke at dinner. I don't know what it was about. And so Crystal kicks, and I say kicks with some air quotes, because like, did she kick it like you're kicking a football from the 50-yard line trying to hit a game-winning field goal, or was it like a little nudge? Like how, I want to know how Crystal kicked her, but whatever. Kicked her, and to get her attention was like, don't say anything, because Kathy started the prank, but now they're pranking Kathy. And she's like, well, I know that there was texts being sent at the table. Were they texting about me? And I think it was Garcelle was like, no, they were actually texting about the prank. So when they get out of the car, Garcelle just was like, hey, were you guys texting about Sutton at the table? Which,
yeah,
good for her, because I don't think Sutton would have done that. I think Sutton would have kind of, at this point, really just tried to be like undermining and like dramatic about it because of the position that she feels she's in right now. So good for Garcelle, just put it out there, and everyone's like, no, we were texting about the prank. And Sutton like says to Garcelle, like, why would you do that? How do you think about that whole car ride home?
I feel like Sutton thinks like very low on herself, and I think I talked about that a little bit before. But I feel like she has clearly low self-esteem issues, and she thinks that everybody is talking about her. So she was just like freaking out. She wasn't scared that she would be the joke, of the table. So it's not accurate. I know some people in real life, they are like this. They're just paranoid, and they're just, so I know that's very real. I know they're just putting an act. It's just sad at this point, because
I do feel like Sutton is trying to make it right. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like she's trying. She has good intentions about her experience on the show. You know, like, you know, she earned a diamond. You know, like
She
that's
did.
very rare. You know, like in Housewives. You know, you don't come as a friend and then go to get a diamond the season after. You know, the public are asking for her to get a diamond for so not for so long, but like after her participation on season 10. So, you know, I feel like she is just stressed about it and she doesn't want to be a joke, you know, and it's showing. It's really showing.
And I think we saw it last season too, that Sutton is really insecure about herself in some situations, like when they were going to, I think it was Lisa Rinna's like daughter's denim party or something, and Dorit kept saying like, oh, she was freaking out, and it, you know, that became a whole thing. You could tell that she gets like a little uppity or like upset about things, and because she thought that makeup artist was going to be there or whatever. And it feels like I'm trying to put myself in Sutton's shoes, and I do feel like if it were me and I were sitting at that table and everybody around the table, at that side of the table, the only side I could hear was texting each other and making a joke and laughing, and I was not in on the joke, I would have felt maybe not as insecure as Sutton, but I would have felt like something was going on and that I was the butt of the joke. I mean, she was clearly left out. In the car, it was explained to her, and that should have been the end of it. But I think at that point, she had already worked herself up so much that she got upset. She got out of the car. She was crying. Kyle saw she was crying. And then the second that you're feeling emotional, I don't know if you guys feel this, but like you're emotional, you're trying to hold it back. And then someone says like, what's wrong? It opens the floodgate. Like you can't hold it anymore. And then the floodgates open and you're overreacting and it's like a thing. And I feel like that's probably what happened with Sutton. I don't blame her for feeling insecure in that moment.
It doesn't help that literally right before the prank, that's when Dorit turned her back on like Sutton's side of the table
and was talking about her.
Talk about what had literally just happened. So like I could also understand that paranoia of like, all right, these last 24 hours have been tough for me, and then like blatantly seeing that people are texting each other at the table, especially when it's someone like you've been in a room or at a table where you've seen that happen and you're like, what's fuck's going on?
Yeah.
So I understand the insecurity. I think it's just heightened by everything that happened. Plus we even see like she's scared of everything when they were on their like car bike thing. Like my dog's afraid of a lot, I thought, but like Sutton surpasses him by a landslide. She was afraid of, name it, she it's not for her. So I do understand in a sense, but like it's one of those things that like she's in this case it was built up in her head. But I can see why the previous events led her to feel that way.
Yeah.
So once we get inside, we get some Sutton and Crystal interaction again. Sutton turns and is like, says to Crystal, "You kicked me," and Crystal's like, "I kicked you because I didn't want you to ruin the joke. You're so uptight. You're so insecure." She's not wrong. And then Garcelle like explains the whole joke. So the worst is when you tell a joke and then you have to explain why it's funny. Like I felt bad for like the people involved in the joke because it should have just been hilarious at that point. So Sutton goes, "I have never had that happen," when someone having someone kick her. And Crystal's like, "You're the most ridiculous human being. I guess there's a first time for everything."
I love Crystal. Like, I love Sutton too, but like, I love Crystal.
Me too.
She's just like, you know, she's chill. And she just tell you how it is. If you don't like it, literally go fuck yourself. Like, I don't care. That's your problem, not my problem.
She's no bullshit. She's no bullshit.
Yeah.
I love Crystal. I love her.
So Sutton's like, "Well, that's not the nicest thing." And Crystal's like, "Okay, I'm sorry. Like, move on." And Garcelle kind of intervenes, being like, "Crystal is being a little harsh." But again, if I was Crystal right now, I would probably be being pretty bitchy too at this point. Again, based off the last day. But Garcelle also recognizes like the two of them just aren't meshing right now. So it's almost like no matter what happens, there's going to be comments. It's not going to go great. And Kyle even turns to Sutton and is like, "You're being a little dramatic right now."
My favorite moment was when Sutton was walking inside and was like, I'm an adult woman. And Kyle grabs her arm and is like, then act like one. And I was like,
Yes.
oh, the mom just came out of Kyle. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
not normally here for Kyle, but I was here for Kyle in that moment. I'm very much anti-Kyle, actually. But I was here for Kyle in that specific moment.
I really enjoyed that moment of Kyle too. I saw that and I was like, ooh.
I was like, let's get more of that.
Yeah, you tell her,
Yeah.
Well, because Kyle was also on the outside of that joke. Like,
right.
He didn't know about what was going on either. So for her to be like, calm the fuck down.
Right.
So after that, we get Crystal going to her room to call her friend and like it was her friend, right? It wasn't her husband.
So. I think I
thought it said friend, to like tell her about like what's been happening. But she had left her jacket in the living room, and so Sutton was like, she was kicking me, but I'm gonna show her what a real woman does. Like that's what girlfriends
set up to me
do for girlfriends. You think it was set up for her to walk in on her, which we find out in the preview for next week naked?
Yeah.
It felt a little bit weird that, okay, Crystal still had her mic on, so we heard everything that she was saying, which was weird. Like, if you're going to bed for the night, why is your mic still on? And then we also just randomly, Sutton was like, I need to go to bed. It seemed like she was overtired. And then Kyle felt like she wasn't letting her go to bed. She was like, just sit here. And then just randomly, she's like, this is what a friend does. I'm bringing her a jacket. I was like, this seems very weird. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe a conspiracy theory, but it felt like it was set up.
But it could be. I don't know if it was like, I don't know if Sutton was aware of that.
Yeah.
But I can see like production, like seeing that coach there and just been like, hey, Kyle, like hold her for a little bit, we're gonna send Sutton to, because that's how producers work, they literally come to you and they'll be like, like they want you to, I don't know, like, fight with someone, they'll be like, how are you feeling right now? Oh, are you angry with her? Are you really angry at her? Why don't you go talk to her right now? So like, I do feel like Sutton was like instigated, and like the way that like it seems like when I read or watch stuff about like producers and stuff like that, is that like they really like are your best friends, they walk with each one of them, have like a team, including a producer and a camera crew and whatever, that literally just like walks with them everywhere, and I can see that, they really like instigating her, like, but not just like go there and start a mess. Just like like they knew that was gonna start a mess because Crystal was in the room naked, as we know in the other episodes. But just like, why don't you just go there? She's gonna love it, girl. Go do that, And here we go, Sutton being a pawn again and just being a mess.
Yep. And that is the end of our episode. So again, as if you have trekked along on this near 3-hour ride with us, realize that we didn't get the most fun episodes. We had Kathy Hilton to give us some reprieve, but otherwise we had some heavy topics here, which again, being able to talk about it is just a pleasure in itself, because I think that seeing the intersection of our enjoyment of TV and also like us as humans and our morals and what we're learning day in, day out about being better allies and just all of that, like, it's nice to be able to talk about it for 3 hours using our favorite housewives as the characters in our story. So we are going to wrap things up here because, again, you've been with us for a while the whole time. So let me find our whole little social media stuff. So, Katie, can you tell the people where they can find you?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter at RealSlimKatie. You can also find me on Twitch. I do a little streaming situation there with at RealSlimKatie with an underscore at the end because someone stole my username.
Oh, what a jackass.
I know, so rude. And that's it. I'm also on Instagram at RealSlimKatie, but I don't really do that much over there. So that's it. That's me.
When Leandra was like, Katie watches this, and I think we should have her on like Real Slim Katie. Is that?
I love that. I love that.
That's an amazing like username. I love it so much.
I locked it down in 2009, thankfully.
Yeah.
Back when Twitter and Instagram were like,
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Very good.
I
Thank
still
you.
check regularly if @Carrie is available, and there's this girl who like tweets about horror movies who still has it. It's really, really disheartening.
That is
But
disheartening.
Leandro, where can people find you?
Oh, it's right there.
Oh,
That's my.
it's crazy. Sorry I didn't have one for you, Katie.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah, that's my Twitter account over there. You know, at the moment I am private, but if you're cool, I will let you join in. I talk a lot about reality TV, you know, about movies and just like my life in general. I tweet both in Portuguese and in English because I'm from Brazil, living in Canada. But you know, like, just come for a good time.
Leo, can I tell you, you know how on Instagram they have like the C translation button and you can like translate? I want that on Twitter so badly just so I can read what you're tweeting about because I know I
But
want to
it
know.
does. It does have no.
Not for us.
No, I don't have it.
Oh,
No.
because like for me, like it shows up on Twitter as well.
Really? I have to poke around a little bit more because I've never
Like,
seen it, but I
you-
want it
Me
because I
neither.
want to know because I feel
So-
like I love your tweets so much.
you just like opens the tweet and I feel like it's gonna be like a little thinking about like Twitter in English and then just like click it like to translate because you record and you can do like with literally any language. Sometimes, for example, like there's language like, you know, like Asian languages
Yeah.
that like you didn't even listen to the alphabet, and Twitter will translate that as well. The same way with Instagram. So, you know, just
All right, I'm gonna play around with it.
Yeah, Katie,
Yeah.
try right now.
That's exactly
before we
literally what
leave.
I'm doing.
I'll stall. I'll do my social media stuff. So
I don't
take
see
your time.
it.
I am all right. So, and if you want to follow me, you can follow me at KGD26. I'm public on Twitter where I just tweet mostly about the stupid things I do day in, day out. But if you want to talk to me about Potomac on there, that's what I'm currently watching, and I will gladly engage in those conversations. I'm also on Instagram where you can see my dog regularly. In terms of silent podcasts, we just finished the OG's season of the challenge. So if you're going to go and binge that and want some commentary on it, I had such a good time with that crew. It was so funny. We were laughing throughout everything. So definitely if you're looking for something to listen to accompany your binge watch, check us out. Would love to have you watching that. All right. So I'm still slow at the whole like putting the end of stuff.
Can I just say, like, before like we wrap it up, I just want to like really like acknowledge Katie's presence here today, and thank you for being here. Like, you know, you added up to the conversations. It was really nice having you here. I always have a good time talking to you, but like in this specific scenario, was really you brought so many good points, and I really appreciate that you say yes to this. And you're always welcome to come back. Literally,
we're definitely gonna get you back when it's like a less heavy week, and so that we can like make jokes and poke fun and all that stuff, especially because we are fierce rivals in our interests.
We are. I know. We need to talk more about that. But thank you so much for having me. This has been great. I love, like I said earlier, I love talking about Housewives. So anytime you want to have me, I'll be back anytime. I'll always accept an invitation. This has been so much fun.
Perfect. Well, if you are interested in checking out the rest of Silent Podcast stuff, where we are anything but silent, you can follow us on social media, turn on the notifications. So on Twitch, we're Silent Podcast. Twitter, it's @silent_podcast. YouTube, Silent Podcast. We are close, I guess, to being an affiliate on Twitch. I don't 100% understand that. So if you are following along, follow us on Twitch. Even if you don't use Twitch much, get us to 50 so that we can do bigger and better things. I'm not 100% sure what those are, but we want it, and that's what matters.
I'm going right now.
You are interested in other shows that we aren't covering yet, let us know. There's probably someone in our crew who does watch it and just needs to know that there's other people that want to listen. And so comment, and we will definitely take into consideration. But Leandro, Katie, thank you for joining me for these last 3 hours of my life. They've been a pleasure. Katie, we will definitely be having you back soon, whether you like it or not.
I like it.
Good. That's the right answer. So thank you again for listening to Silent Podcast, where anything but silent, and we will catch you next Saturday with more Housewives.